The Berenstain Bears' Mad, Mad, Mad Toy Craze by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When little bears want the same toys as their friends, they may hook into a craze that just never ends. This is the story of the Berenstain Bears' Mad, Mad, Mad Toy Craze by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. It was a calm and peaceful afternoon in Bear Country. It was calm and peaceful outside the Bear family's treehouse, where the tulips were blooming and the grass was growing. It was calm and peaceful inside the treehouse, where Papa Bear was reading the afternoon paper and Mama Bear was checking out the TV schedule. Ding! But it was all over for peace and calm when brother and sister came tearing home. They rushed up the front steps and burst into the living room, all excited and so out of breath they could hardly talk. "Papa! Mama!" they gasped. "We need it. We gotta have it. We absolutely got it now." "Hold everything," said Papa. "Just calm down and tell me just what it is that you need and absolutely gotta have." Ding. "In advance," sputtered brother. "That's right," gasped sister. "In advance on our allowance. And if we don't get it, Herb's Hobby Shop is gonna run out." "Going to run out of what?" asked Papa. "Why, berry bubbies, of course," said sister. "And what, may I ask, are boony berries, booby bubbies, whatever that was said?" asked Papa. "Berry bubbies, Papa," said brother. "They're terrific. They're great. They're fabulous. And they're cute and adorable," said sister. "And each one is different, and each one has its own name. Cousin Fred always has 6 of them," said brother. "Lizzie has 8, and Queenie has 10, said sister. "Well," said Papa, reaching for his wallet and taking out some money, "far be it from me to deprive my cubs of booby berries." Ding! The money and the cubs disappeared so fast you would have thought it was a magic act. "Well," said a bewildered Papa, "what do you suppose that was about?" "Come to think of it," said Mama, "I did see a sign on Herb's Hobby Shop's window. It said, 'We have berry buddies, $2.95. I didn't think much about it, but I suppose that's what the cubs are talking about." "Talking about is putting it mildly," said Papa. "They were flipping out about it. They were through the roof about it." He sighed. "It's just amazing to me," he said as he went back to his paper, "how otherwise sensible cubs can get pulled into any silly thing that comes along." "I suppose," said Mama as she went back to the TV schedule. Ding! The cubs ran all the way to Herb's Hobby Shop, holding their precious berry bubby money in their hot little hands. And lucky cubs that they were, they got there in time to buy the last 3 berry bubbies in the store. "When do you expect more?" asked brother. "I can't say," said Herb. "I can't even get them on the phone. It's busy 24 hours a day." Though it was true that Cousin Fred had 6, Lizzie had 8, and Queenie had 10 berry bubbies, while brother and sister had only 3, the ones they had were really cute. Each one was different from the other, and each one had its very own name. Ding. Back home, sister said, "We'd like to introduce our berry bubbies. This one is named Ziggy Zippo, this one is named Dimple Darling, and this one is named Harry Harry," said brother. Said Papa as they all sat down to dinner. "They are kind of cute," said Mama. Ding. The next day, the cubs came to Papa with a proposition. "We won't ask for any more advances on our allowance. You'll hire us to do chores," said brother. "What are you going to do with the money you earn?" asked Papa. "Buy more berry bubbies, of course," said sister. "But you said Herb's Hobby Shop is out of them and can't get more," said Papa. "That's right," said brother. "But Lizzie has 2 of a kind, and she's willing to sell one for $5. So does Queenie," said sister. "Only she wants $7. "Hey," said Papa, "I thought there were just $2.95 on Herb's Hobby Shop." That's right, said Sister. Only these herbs all out. Said Papa. Buying and selling berry bubbies is beginning to sound like a pretty good business. Ding. Speaking of business, said Mama, here's a piece in the paper about a fellow who bought a whole bunch of berry bubbies before they became popular. It says here that he just sold his entire collection for a fortune. Let me see that, said Papa, snatching the paper. Papa, said Brother, about those chores? Ding. For the next couple of days, Brother and Sister pulled weeds, sorted trash, and cleaned out cobwebs like there was no tomorrow. Of course, there were more tomorrows. Lots of them. And Brother and Sister were determined to spend them figuring out ways to get more berry bubbies. Just listen to this, said Papa, reading from a Berry Bubbies magazine he had found at the supermarket. A rare berry bubby was sold in Bearfield for hundreds of dollars. Did you hear that? Hundreds of dollars! That's when Brother and Sister burst in with the berry bubbies they had bought with their chore money. Papa! Cried Brother. We heard a rumor that the Toys R Us store in Big Bear City just got a huge shipment of berry bubbies. A huge shipment, cried Sister. Jump in the car, said Papa. But Big Bear City is 20 miles away, said Papa, following them out the door. By the time Mama finished her sentence, Papa and the cubs were off in a cloud of dust. Ding. Look, a skywriter, cried Sister as they roared around the road to the Big Bear City. What does it say? asked Papa. It says, Berry Bubbies forever, said Brother. We better hurry, cried Papa, flooring the gas pedal, or Toys R Us might run out. The rumor about Toys R Us turned out to be true. A huge banner said, We have berry bubbies, $5. It looked like a big berry bubby party. Only it was more like a big aggravation. The lines wound around the store, babies were crying, and two daddies got into a shoving match about a place in line and had to be taken away by the police. But the cubs got their berry bubbies. In fact, they headed home up to their necks in them. Ding. Of course, not many things are forever, and berry bubbies certainly weren't. Pretty soon, berry bubbies were everywhere. They came in crinkly Campbell's cereal boxes. You could get them at the gas station with a fill-up. You can get them with a crazy meal at the Burger Bear. After a while, just about everybody in Bear Country had so many berry bubbies that they didn't know what to do with them. Ding! There wasn't much you could do with them in the first place. You couldn't play dolly with them the way you could with a good doll. You couldn't play choo-choo with them the way you could with a toy train. You couldn't play baseball with them the way you could with a bat and a ball. All you could do was look at them. Except they had a way of looking back at you and making you think about all the money you had spent on them. Ding! The only thing you could really do with them is brag about how many you had. I have 24 berry bubbies. I have 32 berry bubbies. I have 48 berry bubbies. I have 94 berry bubbies. And no matter how many you had, there was always somebody who had more. I have 4,202. Ding. Now, what do you suppose that was all about? I really don't know. Do-do-do-do-do-do, the end. The Berenstain Bears Go to Camp by Stan and Jan Berenstain. It's vacation time! Hooray! Hooray! Let's spend it outdoors. Let's get away. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears Go to Camp by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. It was the last day of school and the beginning of vacation, that wonderful time when little bears could sit around doing absolutely nothing. Brother Bear and Sister Bear shouted goodbye to Teacher Jane and hopped onto the bus for their happy trip home. Ding! Well, asked Mama Bear after a day of vacation. Are you enjoying sitting around doing nothing? It's great, said Sister. Absolutely, said Brother. There's just one trouble with it, added Sister. There's nothing to do. Here, take a look at this, said Mama as she reached for something that had come in the mail. Ding! This is what it looked like. Tired of sitting around doing nothing? Come to Grizzly Bob's Day Camp. Summer fun for cubs of all ages. Swimming, canoeing, arts and crafts, sports and games, nature study, fully supervised. And don't forget our exciting overnight campfire powwow and sleep out. Some of the things looked interesting, but Brother wondered what fully supervised meant, and Sister wasn't so sure about that overnight sleep out. It sounded a little scary. Ding! Where's this camp? Asked Sister. Not far, answered Mama. How will we get here? There, Brother wanted to know. A bus comes for you in the morning and brings you home in the afternoon. Sounds a little like school, said Brother. We'll think about it, said the cubs, and went back to doing nothing. Well, not exactly nothing. They picked a few wildflowers, chased a few butterflies, turned over a few walks, and thought about it. Mama, could we try Grizzly Bob's Day Camp just to see if we like it? They asked. Of course, said Mama. Ding! A couple of mornings later, Brother and Sister were in camp shorts and t-shirts, all ready and waiting when the bus came. It didn't look much like the school bus. And Grizzly Bob didn't look much like Teacher Jane. And the camp didn't look anything like school. Ding! Grizzly Bob had built his camp beside a lake at the edge of the forest. There were log buildings, a flagpole flying the camp flag, a big bulletin board with the camp rules. There certainly were a lot of rules, some interesting paths, a roped-in place to swim. There was even a big wrecked canoe. Ding! Bob had made name tags for the cubs. You're campmates now, so you better get to know each other, he said. Then he took them on a tour of the camp. There was an office with a desk where he did his paperwork and a first aid corner full of bandages and things for cuts and bruises. There was a rec hall to go into when it rained. Rec was short for recreation. There was a picnic place and a barbecue pit where they roasted hot dogs for lunch. Sister burned her a little, but she traded with another cub who liked burned hot dogs. Bob announced that after lunch they would all climb up Spook Hill to the very top of Skull Rock, the special place where they would have their end of camp powwow and sleep out. It was quite a climb. Ding! That evening, Mom and Papa Bear were eager to know how the cubs liked camp. It was okay, said Brother, but they sure have a lot of rules. It was all right, agreed Sister. They sure have plenty of bandages and stinky stuff for cuts. But what were they both thinking was Skull Rock and that end of camp sleep out. Especially Sister. Ding! The second day was different. Brother had a great day. He passed the swimming test and was allowed to ride in the canoe. Sister didn't have such a good day. She played dodgeball and some of the cubs threw pretty hard. The third day, Sister had fun. She got a star for a birch picture frame she made in arts and crafts. But Brother hurt his knee in the wheelbarrow race. Ding! The fourth day, both of them had fun. And every day after that. So much fun that they forgot about Skull Rock and the sleep out. Almost. Ding! Papa found the sleeping box that he and Mama had used on their honeymoon, and when the camp bus came on the morning of the big night, Brother and Sister were ready. Sort of. The climb up Spook Hill wasn't so hard this time, even with backpacks. The cubs were strong and tough from their summer of camping. Tomorrow would be field day, the last day of camp, when their parents would come to watch their games and contests and see who was given out. But for now, all the cubs could think about was the big sleep out. It was just beginning to get dark when they reached Skull Rock. Ding! Grizzly Bob built a campfire. Then he went into a small cave. When he came out, he was dressed in a beautiful Indian costume. Then the cubs sat in a semicircle and the powwow began. Ding! Bob told them old Indian legends of the great animal spirits, the story of the great grizzly as big as a mountain, the soaring eagle who filled the sky, and the mighty salmon whose colors made the rainbow. As Bob told the old stories, the cubs could almost see the wonderful creatures in the firelit smoke as it curled up into the night sky. Ding! After the powwow, they had cocoa and honey bread. Then they curled up into their sleeping bags, and soon they were all fast asleep, even Sister. The next day, Brother and Sister did very well in the field day games and contests. Brother won a trophy for finishing second in the dash, and Sister got medals for the dead bear's float and for her bed belt. It was almost the end of summer. School would be started in a couple of weeks. Well, asked Papa, how did you like camp? It was great, said Brother, hugging his trophy. Ding! It was great, agreed Sister, wearing her medals proudly. But you know something? After Grizzly Bob's day camp, school will be like a vacation. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. The Berenstain Bears and the Homework Castle by Stan and Jan Berenstain. If you're a bear for TV, loud music, and fun, how are you gonna get your homework done? This is the story of the Berenstain Bears and the Homework Castle by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. Mama was sitting in her favorite chair, straightening up her sewing basket when she sniffed the air and said, "What's that funny smell?" Papa looked up from the evening paper and sampled the air. He said. I smell it too. It smells like garbage, said Mama. It smells like garbage. Papa sniffed again. Now, where do you suppose? Ding! I'll tell you where I suppose, said Mama, who would put aside her sewing basket and sniffed around the room. It's coming from Brother's backpack. And sure enough, it was. There was an old banana peel, a brown apple core, and a moldy piece of bread in Brother's backpack. Ding. But that wasn't all there was in Brother's backpack. Among the books and papers was a letter. It was old and wrinkled, and it was from his teacher. Mama read it. Then she passed it to Papa. After Papa read it, he looked across the table at Brother, who was doing his homework. Ding. At least he was supposed to be doing his homework. And maybe he was, but it was hard to tell by looking at him. He had a card table set up in front of the television, which was showing his favorite program, The Bear Stooges. He was listening to his boombox and talking into a cell phone at the same time. There was a game bear and a bowl of popcorn on the TV. And, oh yes, there were some school books and a paper and pencil, too. Excuse me, young sir, said Papa. Is this the Mars space station? I'll get back to you, Fred, said Brother. He put down the cell phone and turned off the boombox. I'm not quite reading you, Dad. You're not reading much of anything, according to this letter from your teacher. You may as well have been on Mars for all the attention you've been paying to your homework lately, said Papa. Ding! Letter? What letter? Asked Brother. This old, wrinkled letter that Mama found in your backpack, said Papa. The letter may have been old and wrinkled, but its message was clear. Dear parent, I regret to report that Brother Bear has fallen too far behind in his homework. Please call me, yours truly, Teacher Bob. In my backpack? Said Brother. I thought my backpack was private. When something starts to smell like garbage, said Mama, it isn't private anymore. Sister Bear couldn't resist putting her 2 cents in. I don't see how you expect Brother to keep up with his homework. He has so many more interesting things to do. There's soccer, basketball, video games, going around like a big shot, and girls. Brother turned on Sister. Why, you little... Ding. That will be quite enough, Sister, said Papa. Why don't you go do your own homework? It's all done, said Sister. See? You call those scribbles homework, you little twerp, shouted Brother. Now, said Mama, let's everyone calm down and try to figure out what the problem is. Ding. I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is too much homework. Vocabulary homework, arithmetic homework, science homework. It's homework, homework, homework. Every subject, every day till it's coming out of my ears. Uh-huh, said Papa. Tell me, son, what is your homework for today? Adding and subtracting fractions and memorizing 2 stanzas of The Bear Stood on the Burning Deck. That really doesn't seem like too much homework to me, son, said Papa. Brother slumped and stared at the Bear Stooges who were busy hitting one another on the head. I'm not hearing any sort of explanation, said Papa. I guess that's because tonight's homework isn't really the problem. The problem is that you haven't been handing in your homework on a daily basis. You haven't been taking care of business. You've been falling behind. Gee, what's going to happen? Asked Brother as the living room phone rang. It's the BRS, said Mama. For you, Papa. Take their number and I'll call them back, said Papa. What's the BRS, Mama? Asked Sister. It's the Bears Revenue Service, said Mama. They collect taxes. What's going to happen, said Papa, is that there's not going to be any more Mars Space Station. No more boombox, no more popcorn. It's just you and your homework until you're all caught up. But that will take forever, moaned Brother. Nevertheless, said Papa, you just don't understand, said Brother, heading for the door. Where are you going? Asked Mama. I'm just going for a walk, said Brother. As often happened when Brother had a problem and went for a walk, his feet led him to Gramps and Gran's just down the road. Gramps and Gran could tell Brother was in trouble as soon as they opened the door. After some milk and cookies, Brother told them the whole miserable story. The telltale letter, the missed assignments, the no television, the no video games, the no anything until it caught up. And he was so far behind that he'd never catch up. Ding. Oh, you'll catch up, said Gramps. Your father did. Huh? Said Brother. Same thing happened with your dad when he was your age, said Gramps. Of course, there was no television then. No television? Thought Brother. Wow, that would have been like really being on Mars. We had radio, continued Gramps. We still have it, of course, but radio was like television then. It had great stories every evening. There was a western called Bear Smoke, and Buck Brew in the 25th century was sort of like Bear Trek is now. And your dad listened to them while he did his homework. And he was big on sports, just as you are, so he fell further and further behind. I clamped down on him just the way he's clamping down on you. Ding. Gee, thought Brother, Papa does understand. The thought that he'd gone through it all himself made Brother feel a little bit better. A stranger was meeting with Papa when Brother got home. He's from the BRS, said Sister. It has something to do with taxes. It looks like Papa hasn't been taking care of business either. Ding! The stranger was about to leave. We'll be glad to give you a little more time, but you're going to have to catch up, he said as he left. Ding! And that's how it worked out. Brother sat on one side of the card table and Papa sat on the other side. It was a good lesson for both of them. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. The Berenstain Bears and Too Much Pressure by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When cubs and their parents get a little too busy, their everyday lives get a little too dizzy. This is the story of the Berenstain Bears and Too Much Pressure by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. If someone were to ask you who Bear Country's busiest creatures are, you might answer that bees are the busiest. They gather nectar and pollen, make honey, guard the hive, and do all the other things that have earned them the title busy bees. Or you might answer that beavers are the busiest. They fell trees, make dams, and build lodges with secret underwater entrances. There's no question about it. Beavers certainly are busy. But if you were to answer bees and beavers, you would be wrong. Because the busiest creatures in the bear country lately are none other than our friends, the bear family. The bears haven't always been so busy. They used to do the things that most families do. They worked and played, went to school, visited friends, enjoyed nature, and once in a while, they just sat around and did absolutely nothing. Ding! The bears hadn't planned on becoming so busy. It sort of sneaked up on them. First, there was Brother Bear and the Little League. Then Sister Bear got bitten by the ballet bug and started ballet class. When her best friend, Lizzie Bruin, started riding lessons, Sister just had to take that up too. And Brother wasn't about to be left out of something as exciting as horseback riding. Ding! That's how it was with other activities. As soon as one of the Cubs' friends signed up for something, Brother and Sister had to sign up too. Before anyone thought to say enough is enough, they were also signed up for swimming, gymnastics, soccer. Soccer is how we get our kicks. Karate, art, I call it flowerwood trips, and computer club. Ding! Talk about busy! Mom or Papa Bear had to drive Brother and Sister to all those activities. Things got so complicated that Mama had to make a big schedule to keep things straight. Papa hung it on the wall. The schedule was especially difficult on Friday, and today was Friday. Will somebody answer the phone? Called Mama after the fourth ring. I'm busy getting things out of the freezer for tonight's dinner. Get right now, shouted Sister from upstairs. I'm getting ready from ballet. Me neither, yelled Brother. I'm getting on my baseball stuff. Since Papa was out working on the car, Mama had to answer the phone. She reached it by the seventh ring. It seemed a lot longer to Gran on the other end. Hello, said Mama. Hello, dear, said Gran. Is everything all right? You sound a little breathless. Just a little, said Mama. I was in the kitchen getting dinner out of the freezer. The Cubs are upstairs getting dressed for ballet and baseball, and Papa... But before she could explain about Papa, her shoulder bag got tangled in the phone cord, which pulled the phone down with a clunk. What happened? Shouted Gran. There was an awful clunk. Ding. It was just the phone falling. Was there anything special, Gran? What Mama didn't explain was that when she stooped to pick up the phone, her hat fell off, and when she reached for it, she tripped on the cord. Over the cord, and was now sitting in a tangled heap on the floor. I was just calling to invite you all to dinner sometime soon, said Gran. Love to, Gran. But we're just on our way out, so let me check our schedule and get back to you. Fine, Grant said after a pause. Well, goodbye. Mama, said Sister, what are you doing sitting on the floor playing with the full phone cord? Come on, we're going to be late. Drop me off first, shouted Brother on the way to the car. "No, me first," cried Sister. "No, me," insisted Brother. Ding. When Papa tried to explain what had been wrong with the car, the spark plugs needed cleaning, Mama shouted, "Not now, dear," and roared off, leaving him in a cloud of dust. "Well," Gran said as she hung up the phone, "there certainly is a lot going on over at the treehouse." "That's the way young folks are," said Gramps. "They like to get out and do things." "Why, when I was a little feller, doing is one thing," said Gran. "Overdoing," she added with a sigh, "is something else again." If Papa could have heard Gran, he surely would have agreed. There was too much going on, too much coming and going, too much rushing about, too much pressure. The Bear family schedule was becoming a nightmare. As it turned out, a whole series of nightmares. The Cubs had planned to watch some TV that evening, but they were so stiff and tired, Sister from ballet, Brother from baseball, that they went to bed early, fell asleep, and dreamed. Sister dreamed she was on a strange sort of merry-go-round, a merry-go-round of activities which went round and round and round. She wanted to get off, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't. Brother had a dream, too. He dreamed he was caught up in an enormous whirlwind of baseballs, soccer balls, and computers. Papa dreamed he was trapped on a magic carpet that was zooming into a deep black hole. Only it wasn't a magic carpet. It was that awful schedule from the wall. Mama didn't have a nightmare. The reason was that she didn't fall asleep all night. She lay awake staring into the darkness, wondering how she was going to get through the next day. Ding. After a quick breakfast, Mama packed her lunch for Papa, who headed for some work in the forest. Then she shooed the Cubs into the car. "Hurry," she said. "We have a difficult day ahead of us. There's art class, soccer, karate, and swimming. And we've got to squeeze in lunch and shopping." They climbed into the car, and she turned the key. But the engine wouldn't start. She tried again, but it still wouldn't start. "Please, Mama," shouted Brother. "Our karate instructor is very strict about being late. And the soccer coach is worse," yelled Sister. Mama tried again and again. "Please, Mama," they screamed, jumping up and down in the back seat. But no matter how hard she tried, the car just would not start. Then Mama did something the Cubs had never seen her do before. She started to cry. Big wet tears rolled down her cheeks. The Cubs forgot karate and soccer and everything else except that their Mama was crying. "What's the matter?" asked Brother. "Tell us, please," begged Sister. But Mama just went boo-hooing up the front steps and into the house. Go get Papa," Sister said to Brother. "I'll stay with Mama." Sister followed Mama up to her room where she fell on the bed sobbing. It was all Sister could do to keep from crying herself. "It's Mama! You gotta come!" shouted Brother as he reached Papa's workplace in the wood. He told Papa what happened. Papa could see that she was upset. Papa could see that he was upset about Mama crying. "Everyone cries once in a while, son," he said. "Even you?" asked Brother. "Sometimes," Papa said. "The problem with the car is those spark plugs. We probably need new ones, but the real problem is the schedule of ours. I know Mama didn't sleep well last night worrying about it." "I didn't sleep too well either. I had this awful dream," admitted Brother. "That makes two of us," said Papa. "Sister had one too," said Brother as they reached the treehouse. "Mama stopped crying," announced Sister as Papa and Brother came upstairs. "That's right," Mama said, smiling through a few last tears. "There's nothing like a good cry sometimes." "And there's nothing like a little common sense about too much pressure," said Papa. Ding. So the bears had a family meeting right then and there. The cubs agreed that 2 after-school activities a week was more than enough. Brother chose baseball and computer club. Sister chose ballet and horseback riding. True, they lost their title as the busiest family in bear country, but they went back to having a very good time doing the everyday things that most families do. They worked and played, went to school, visited friends, enjoyed nature. Ding. And once in a while, they sat around doing absolutely nothing. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. The Berenstain Bears and the Trouble with Friends by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When making friends, the cub who's wise is the cub who learns to compromise. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and the Trouble with Friends by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear the sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. Sister and brother bear, who lived with their mama and papa in the big tree house down a sunny dirt road deep in bear country, were not only sister and brother, they were playmates, and they got along pretty well, most of the time. But brother was quite a lot older than sister, almost 2 years, and sometimes he wasn't much interested in the game she wanted to play, especially when sister got a little bossy, which she sometimes did. Now, she said one day as she came out of the treehouse with a big armload of her dolls and stuffed animals, "We're going to play tea party. You sit there and be the papa, and I'll sit here and be the mama." "Aw, gee, sis," said brother. "I'm too old to play tea party. Why, if Cousin Freddie or any of the guys saw me, I'd never hear the end of it. Why don't you find somebody your own age to play tea party with? Besides, I have a date to go skateboarding with Freddie." And off he zoomed, leaving sister all by her lonesome. "All right for you," she shouted. Bing. "Oh dear," said Mama, who was watching from the treehouse window. "There goes brother off to play with Freddie again. I do wish sister had somebody her own age to play with." "What about her school friends?" asked Papa, joining her at the window. "They all live too far away," sighed Mama as she watched lonesome sister pick up her trusty jump rope and start jumping with a friendly frog. Soon, a butterfly joined in. "She has her forest friends, the frogs and butterflies, to play with," said Papa. "Frogs and butterflies are all very well," said Mama, "but they're not the same as having a cub friend your own age." That's when Mama saw the moving truck out of the corner. That's when Mama saw the moving truck out of the corner of her eye. "Look," she said, "a new family moving into the empty tree house down the road. It certainly would be nice if they had a cub sister's age." Sister saw the truck too, and the car was following it. "Somebody moving into the empty tree house," she said. "I wonder if they have any cubs." And off she skipped down the road to investigate. Ding. The truck stopped at the empty house, and the moving bears began to unload it. The car pulled in behind the truck, and the new family got out. There was a mama, a papa, and a little girl cub just about sister's age. Sister could hardly believe her good luck. Just what she needed. A little girl cub to jump rope, play tea party in house and school, and have all kinds of cub fun with. She could hardly wait to say hello. She skipped over and introduced herself. Ding! "Hi, I'm Sister Bear. I'm 6 years old and I live just down the road." "Hi," said the new cub. "I'm Lizzie Bruin, and this is my papa and mama, Mr. and Mrs. Bruin. I'm 6-year-old too. May I try your jump rope? I could do red on paper." And could she ever? Lizzie Bruin was the fastest rope jumper sister had ever seen. "I can jump to 1,000, said sister. "I could do 1,001, said Lizzie, returning the rope. 1,002, snapped sister. 1,003, said Lizzie. "Well, we'll just see about that. Let's have a jump off here and now," said sister. Let's not and say we did, said Lizzie. Say, isn't that a playground over there? Last one there is a rotten egg. And off she ran with Sis, doing her best to catch up. Ding! Well, said Ma, who had been watching from the window. The new cub certainly is a lively little thing. She might be just what Sister needs. Sister and Lizzie had a quiet afternoon. They climbed to the top of the jungle gym, rode the seesaw, and pushed each other on swings. They played tag, laughed and giggled, rolled down a grassy bank, and picked wildflowers for their mamas. Ding. Why, thank you, Sister. How lovely, said Mama, putting her wildflowers in water. Well, what's your new friend like? Her name is Lizzie. She's 6 years old and she's an only cub. And, Sister said, she's a little bossy. Oh, said Mama. Well, you certainly seem to be having fun. Oh, yes, said Sister. I had a lot of fun. A little bossy and a little braggy. The next morning, bright and early, the phone rang. It was Sister's new friend, Lizzie. Ding. Want to come over and play school? Asked Lizzie. Okay, said Sister. Bring some of your dolls and stuffed animals, added Lizzie, because mine aren't packed yet. So Sister gathered up some of her favorite dolls and stuffed animals and headed for the treehouse down the road. Come on in here, called Lizzie from the garage. My mom and Papa are still fixing up and putting away, so we're going to play in here. Who did you bring? My best doll and stuffed animals, said Sister. And this is my special teddy that I've slept with every night since I was a baby. Ding. Lizzie had set up the garage like a schoolroom. There were boxes for the pupils to sit on, and there was another box for the teacher's desk. There was even a blackboard and chalk for lessons. This is going to be fun, thought Sister Bear as she began sitting her toys on the boxes. That's when she heard the tapping sound. It was Lizzie tapping on the desk. She had a pretend pointer in one hand and a piece of chalk in the other. Ding. Please be seated, Sister. It's time for your lessons. Today I'm going to teach you the alphabet. The first letter of the alphabet is now. Just a minute, protested Sister. Who said you were going to be the teacher? When I play school, I'm the teacher. And not only that, I already know my ABCs. Sister Bear, if you don't sit down this minute, I'm going to keep you after school, said Lizzie. Is that so? Shouted Sister. Well, if you don't give me that pointer, I'm going to keep you after school. That's when Sister grabbed the pointer. Soon they were rolling around the floor, wrestling for the pointer, which broke in two. Now look what you did, shouted Lizzie. You broke my best pointer. I'm not going to play with you ever again, shouted Sister, gathering up her toys. I'm going to take my dolls and go home. Sister's mad and I'm glad, shouted Lizzie as Sister marched out of the garage. Lizzie, Lizzie, in a tizzy, Sister shouted back. Back so soon? Asked Mama when Sister returned looking like a storm cloud. I'm never going to play with that Lizzie Bruin again, shouted Sister. She's much too braggy and bossy. I don't need her to play school or anything else. It's much better playing by yourself. When you play by yourself, you can do what you want, when you want, without having to worry about that Lizzie Bruin. That's true, said Mama in a quiet voice. Of course, there are some things you really can't do very well by yourself. Like what? Asked Sister. You'd had a pretty hard time pushing yourself on the swing, said Mama. And I'd like to see you ride a seesaw by yourself. Most games like hopscotch and jacks take at least two to play. And it certainly is nice to have someone to laugh and giggle with. Maybe so, said Sister. But Lizzie was much too braggy and bossy. Why does she have to be the teacher when we play school? It seems to me, said Mama, taking Sister on her lap, that Lizzie isn't the only cub that's braggy and bossy sometimes. And of course, there's one thing you can do much better by yourself. What's that, Mama? Be lonesome, said Mama quietly. And that's when somebody knocked on the door. Ding! It was Lizzie, and she was carrying Sister's teddy. When Sister took all her dolls and went home, she forgot her teddy, she said. And, well, I knew it was her special favorite that she slept with since she was a baby, and I thought she might miss it. Why, thank you, Lizzie, said Mama. That was very thoughtful of you. Thank you very much, said Sister, hugging her teddy. And you can be teacher if you want to, said Lizzie. Or, said Sister, we can take turns being teacher. Terrific, said Lizzie. Great, said Sister, gathering up her doll and stuffed animals again. Last one back to your garage is a rotten egg. Ding. And off she scooted, laughing and giggling, with Lizzie scampering after her. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. Psh. The Berenstain Bears and the Trouble with Grownups by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Grownups and cubs get quite a surprise when they see themselves through the other's eyes. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and the Trouble with Grownups by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear the sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. Even though it was bright and clear outside the Bear family's treehouse, there was a storm brewing inside. For while it would be wrong to say that cubs and grown-ups are natural enemies, it would be fair to say that cubs and grown-ups sometimes don't get along. Where's the rest of my paper? Thundered an angry Papa Bear, storming into the living room. It didn't take him long to find Brother Bear in the sports section. I just borrowed it, said Brother. Papa snatched it up and plumped down in his easy chair. Brother wandered into the kitchen, looking for sympathy from Mama Bear. Gee, he said, what's eating him? Ding. Your father looks forward to his evening paper, Mama said, and he has a perfect right to be annoyed when half of it is missing. And furthermore, I'll thank you not to refer to your father as him. She stomped out of the kitchen. Why not? He's a him, isn't he? Gosh, said Brother. What's eating her? What was eating Mama was Sister Bear. Sister had been on the phone with Lizzie Bruin for almost an hour. But Mama, she protested when she was told to say goodbye. Don't but Mama me, said Mama Bear. This is not your private phone. You've had all day to talk to Lizzie at school, and you'll have all day to talk to her tomorrow. So hang up that phone now. Sister did as she was told. Ding. Later at dinner, Brother and Sister got into a little more trouble. Peas and mashed potatoes again, said Brother under his breath. And what, Papa asked, is wrong with peas and mashed potatoes? Brother was about to answer that they had them 3 days in a row, but he thought better of it. Instead, he began counting and sparing peas onto his fork. 1, 2, 3, 4. What are you doing? Asked Sis. Trying to see how many peas I can get onto my fork at one time, he answered. Ding. While Brother was counting peas, Sister was working on her mashed potatoes. She patted them into a little mountain, and then using her spoon, she pressed a cup in the top. Pour it right there, she said when Mama offered her gravy. What in the world? Commented Mama. Well, you see, said Sister, it's a volcano, and the gravy is going to be the lava and flow down the sides. That will be quite enough of volcanoes and counting peas, shouted Mama. Food is to eat, not to play with. Gee whiz, said Brother. We're just trying to make it interesting. Food isn't supposed to be interesting, roared Papa. It's supposed to be food. Ding. Brother and Sister went to bed that night and got up the next morning without much fuss. But trouble started again at breakfast. Oh, yes, Brother said, suddenly remembering something. We'll be getting the late bus home this afternoon because... Late bus? Interrupted Mama. I was planning on her visiting Gran after school. But Mama, he protested, we're staying late to plan for the Parents' Night talent show next Friday. Parents' Night, she said. First I heard of it. And Friday is my chess night with Farmer Ben, complained Papa. Here's a notice I brought home, said Sis, sticking into her bag. I forgot to give it to you. Me too, muttered Brother. Why, this notice is a week old, said Mama. Forgot! Forgot! Roared Papa. Why, you cubs would forget your heads if they weren't attached to your shoulders. Phew! Breathed Brother as he fell into the seat beside Coach Fred on the school bus. Tough morning? Asked Fred. You better believe it, said Sister, taking the seat Lizzie had saved for her. The four compared notes on the way to school. The cubs agreed that while there was no doubt that their parents loved them, they were a little difficult to get along with sometimes. They nagged, they said no a lot, and they never wanted cubs to have any fun. Hey, said Brother, as they got off the bus. What are we going to do for the Parents' Night Talent Show? Don't know, said Lizzie. Let's think about it. That afternoon, the auditorium was filled with the cubs getting ready for the show. Babs Bruno was playing her violin. Queenie McBear was pacing pirouettes. Tootle and his gang were working on a rap number, which teacher Bob didn't look too happy about. Brother, Sis, and Fred and Lizzie didn't have an idea yet. But as they searched their brains, Brother snapped his fingers and said, I've got it! Remember what we were talking about on the bus this morning? Sure, said Fred. We were saying how grown-ups can be a big pain. Well, said Brother, let's put on a play about that and call it The Trouble with Grown-ups, shouted all the others. Sensational, said Sister as they slapped hands, delighted with the idea of showing parents how hard it is being a cub. Ding! But putting on a play is easier said than done. You have to write it out, figure out who is going to play the parts, and then memorize it. Then you have to worry about costumes and scenery. The cubs did all that. It was hard, but it was fun, and they did it all in secret. Costumes for Fred and Lizzie were easy. They were going to be brother and sister, so they just borrowed their extra clothes. Getting costumes for brother and sister wasn't so simple, but they would be playing their own mama and papa. They managed by letting Gran in on the secret. She was a wizard at the sewing machine, and she made them great-looking little mama and papa costumes. The four practiced their parts, and before they knew it, it was time for the big Parents' Night Talent Show. Ding! There was a lot of talent at the Bear Country School, and all the acts did pretty well, but it was Brother, Sister, Fred, and Lizzie's play that was the hit of the show. The Trouble with Grownups, a play in 2 acts, written, directed, and performed by Brother Bear, Sister Bear, Cousin Fred, Lizzie Bruin. I'm Papa Bear, and I'm going to relax in my easy chair after a hard day and read my paper. Yikes! Somebody stole my sports page! Help! Murder! Police! Somebody stole my sports page! Here it is, Papa. I didn't steal it. I just borrowed it. It's disgraceful. That's what it is. Cubs have it too easy today. They have everything handed to them. I used to walk 20 miles to school in blinding snowstorms. But Papa, don't but Papa me. Act 2. Ding. Ring. Hello. Hi, Lizzie. Sister Bear, get off that phone. I'm expecting a very important call. Who from? Who from? Who from? How am I supposed to know who from? But Mama. Don't but Mama me. The audience of parents laughed and laughed when they saw how they seemed to the cubs. Mama laughed until tears rolled down their cheeks. Papa laughed too, but not as much as Mama. They both thought that the play, which is a big surprise to them, was very well done. They admitted that it helped them understand what it was like being a cub. Ding. The next morning, Mom and Papa had a bit of a surprise for their cubs. You might even say a shock. Mama, who was a sewing wizard herself, had made a grown-up-sized pink jumper. Wearing it, she looked like a huge sister bear. She even had a pink bow. Papa, wearing a red pajama top and blue bottoms, looked like a gigantic brother bear. The cubs were confused. It's very simple, explained Mama. You helped us understand what it's like being cubs. By pretending we're the cubs and you're the grown-ups, we're going to show you what it's like being parents. Ding. Before brother and sister could say a word, Mom and Papa began acting like cubs. Where's breakfast? I'm hungry, shouted Papa. I hope we're not having that gooey oatmeal again, screamed Mama. Ooey gooey oatmeal! Ooey gooey oatmeal! Shouted Papa, jumping up and down. Brother pulled sister into the living room, where they could hear themselves talk. But the living room was another shock. There were things all over the floor, not toys, which they sometimes left lying about, but strange things like a vacuum cleaner, Mama's sewing basket, Papa's chainsaw, and his wrench set. What a mess! Ding! The cubs understood. Mom and Papa were showing them what it was like having to pick up after them. Mom and Papa ran through the mess and headed for the front door. Brother cried, "Please don't bang that!" But it was too late. Papa banged the door so hard it shook the house. Brother began to smile. Sister began to giggle. They went out on the stoop. There were cubs, Mom and Papa sporting about on the lawn. Mama jumping rope, Papa trying kick turns on Brother's skateboard. But their feet got tangled, and they sprawled head over heels on the grass. Pretty soon, they were all laughing so hard their sides ached. Ding. Later, when they were back to being themselves, Papa said, "I have a better idea how cubs feel now," Mama agreed. Brother and sister admitted they had a better idea how parents felt too. "Boy," said Brother, "you two sure know how it was like to act like cubs." "After all, we were cubs once ourselves," said Mama. "And here's a thought. You'll be grown-ups someday, and each probably have cubs of your own." Ding. Brother and sister thought about that for a moment. They looked at each other, then they looked off into the distance and thought about it. There was something to think about. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. Psh. The Berenstain Bears and the Green-Eyed Monster by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When another bear gets something brand new, the green-eyed monster makes you want one too. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and the Green-Eyed Monster by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear the sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. It was a happy time in the big tree house down a sunny dirt road deep in bear country. A happy birthday time. It was Brother Bear's birthday, and he was getting some very fine presents. Fright wasn't exactly having a party, but Cousin Fred, Lizzie Bruin, and Babs Bruno were there, and Gramps and Gran, of course. Ding! "Wow!" said Brother when he opened his present from Gramps. It was an aluminum bat. "Thanks, Gramps. I had 20 home runs with this." Gran's present was a great-looking warm-up jacket. Brother tried it on and looked in the mirror. "Thank you, Gran. It's really neat," he said. His older presents were a fielder's glove from Cousin Fred, a sports video from Lizzie Bruin, and a mystery book from Babs Bruno. Sister's very thoughtful gift was a package of balsa wood, the special wood Brother used for making model airplanes. Ding! Thank you all," he said. "You're welcome and happy birthday," said the gift givers. Sister's gift was thoughtful. She was being thoughtful in another way, too. It isn't always easy when your brother gets a lot of presents and you don't. Sister understood that she had gotten a present when it was her birthday and would again. Besides, she wasn't that interested in aluminum bats, worn-up jackets, fielder's gloves, sports videos, or balsa wood anyway. Ding! But all that changed when Mama and Papa gave Brother their present. It was the biggest, most beautiful racing bike Sister had ever seen. It had a handbrake, 3 speeds, and super sport wheels. When Sister saw that beautiful bike, it was no longer "Happy birthday, Brother." It was, "I gotta have that bike. I gotta. Ding. Mama saw that "I gotta have it" look in Sister's eyes. She took her aside and reminded her all about the wonderful presents she had gotten on her last birthday. But Sister didn't hear a word Mama said. She just stared at that big, beautiful bike with the handbrake and the super sport wheels. "Oh dear," said Mama. "I think you've been taken over by the green-eyed monster." "Green-eyed monster?" said Sister. What's that? Oh, said Mom. That's just a way folks have of talking about jealousy and envy. You know what it means to be jealous. Envy is when you want something that belongs to somebody else. But Mama, said Sister, it's such a great, beautiful bike. Ding. Please listen to me, Sister, said Mama. If you had a bike like that, you couldn't ride it. You're not big enough. If you wouldn't reach the pedals. Besides, look what Papa's got for you. Papa's was wheeling in Brother's junior-sized bike with its training wheels attached. It's yours now, he said. Sister looked at the bike Brother had outgrown. It was okay, but it didn't have a handbrake, 3 speeds, and super sport wheels. Ding! Come on now, said Mama. Our guests are leaving. It's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, said Brother. Thank you for all the wonderful presents. Bye, said Sister. Gramps and Gran got into their pickup truck and headed for home. Lizzie Bruin got into her dad's car with the others. Mr. Bruin had agreed to come for them and drive them home, but then Papa helped carry the new bike down the front steps. Mom and Papa watched proudly as Brother climbed on and tried it out. First, Brother rode big, fast circles around the treehouse. Then he did a few wheelies. When he started running with his feet up on the handlebars, Mama got worried. Now let's not be reckless, she said. Sister watched too. She had gone inside and was watching from a window. As she did so, she became filled with envy. From the tips of her pink hair bow down the tips of her toenails, Sister really wanted that big, beautiful racing bike. Ding. That night, Sister was having trouble falling asleep because she was still thinking about the bike. Then, just as her eyes were closing, the strangest thing happened. She had a visitor. The visitor looked exactly like Sister, except she was green and had little horns on her head. I know who you are, Sister said. You're the green-eyed monster. Ding. Sister was having a dream, of course, but she didn't know that. That's the thing about dreams. They're so real. Come, said the green-eyed monster. If you want a bike like Brother's, all you have to do is prove you're big enough to ride it. But before she quite knew what was happening, she was up on the bike and the green-eyed monster was giving her a big push. Ding. The bike was much too big for her. Her feet couldn't even almost reach the pedals. Then, as so often happens in dreams, things began to change. The bike got bigger and bigger and bigger. Now Sister was speeding down a hill. At the bottom was a great rock. She smashed into it. There was a huge crash. Brother's beautiful new birthday bike flew into 1,000 pieces. What have I done? She screamed. What have I done? Papa and Mama, who had just fallen asleep, came running into the cub's room. Oh, Mama, cried Sister. I just smashed Brother's beautiful birthday bike into 1,000 pieces! 1,000 pieces! Try to calm down, sweetie, said Mama. Brother's bike is perfectly safe. You were having a dream. What's going on? Said Brother, rubbing his eyes. I'll get downstairs and get us all some warm milk, said Papa. Help us get back to sleep. And it did. The next day, Sister's best friend, Lizzie, came over to play. She and Sister had a fun time riding around the yard. But his old bike turned out to be just right for Sister. Lizzie had a good time on Sister's old trike, and Brother rode circles around them on his birthday bike. Then, later, when Mr. Bruin came over to pick up Lizzie, he had a very big surprise for everybody. He had just traded in his old car for a beautiful brand new one. And what a car it was! It had wire wheels, leather seats, and racing stripes. Ding. Mama, Brother and Sister, and Lizzie congratulated Mr. Bruin on his fine new car. But not Papa. He just stood and stared. He had the same I gotta have it look that sister had when she first saw brother's new bike. Papa, said sister, I think you better watch out for you-know-who. Papa did know who. Mr. Bruin, he said, congratulations on a fine new car. After the Bruins drove away, Mom and Papa sat on the treehouse steps and watched brother and sister do some plain and fancy bike riding. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. The Berenstain Bears Visit the Dentist by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Taking good care of their teeth is something all bears do. That's why Sis and Brother brush and go to the dentist too. This is the story called The Berenstain Bears Visit the Dentist by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. One morning, Sister Bear woke up in the same old bed, in the same old pajamas, and yawned the same old yawn. But something was different. I have a loose tooth, she told Brother Bear. Ding. Well, push it back and forth with your tongue, and maybe it'll come out, yawned Brother as he turned over to go back to sleep. Then what? Asked Sister. Brother had told her about the tooth fairy, and she wanted to hear it again. Then put it under your pillow, and the tooth fairy will take it away and leave a new coin in its place. But, Brother added, be sure to tell Mama about it first. Ding. Later at breakfast, when Mama was reminding Brother he had a dentist appointment after school, she noticed that Sister was eating funny. She has a loose tooth, Brother explained. When it comes out, said Sister, wiggling it with her tongue, I'm going to put it under my pillow for the tooth fairy. If she doesn't wiggle it out, she can come to the dentist with us and he can yank it out, Brother grinned. Ding. Never mind that kind of talk, said Mama. Dr. Berenstain doesn't yank. He's very gentle and very careful. I'll get it out myself, Vardy, Sister shouted as Brother hopped onto the big yellow school bus. Ding. But Sister was still wiggling her loose tooth with her tongue when she and Mama met Brother after school and went to the dentist. Ding. It feels suck, she said, showing Dr. Berenstain her loose tooth. Well, said the dentist, I'll take a look at it after I examine Brother's teeth. You can stand on this stool and watch, if that's all right with Brother. Sure, said Brother as he climbed into the special cub seat in the big dentist chair. She can watch me and see how it's done. Brother had been to the dentist before, and he couldn't help showing off just a little. Ding. Sister watched as Dr. Berenstain checked each one of Brother's teeth with a special little tool. How do you see the backs? She asked. With this little mirror, said the dentist. Here, have a look. Wow, said Sister, looking into Brother Bear's mouth. It looks like a cave. A cave with a tongue. Ding. Well, Dr. Berenstain checked Brother Bear's teeth. Sister looked at the other tools on his work tray. There were little picks, a scraper, a tamper, and a yanker. She had become so interested that she had forgotten all about her loose tooth. She went to work wiggling again. She wiggled hard, but it was still stuck. There were some other interesting dentist things. A water squirter for rinsing, an air squirter for drying, and a little drill on the end of a big hinged arm for cleaning out a cavity. And Brother had a cavity. It's just a tiny one, said Dr. Berenstain, "and the last of your baby molars. But it's best to fill it to keep it from getting bigger." Said Brother Bear bravely. "I'm glad it's not me," thought Sister, still wiggling. Ding! After Dr. Berenstain cleaned out the cavity, he rinsed it with the water squirter and dried it with the air squirter. Then he mixed up some filling cement and filled it. He gently tamped the filling down and scraped it smooth. A final rinse, and Brother jumped down, as good as new. "Your turn," he said. Ding! Bravely, Sister climbed up into the cub's seat, still wiggling, but that loose tooth just didn't seem to want to come out. Said the dentist, looking at the tooth. "Oh," said Sister, waiting for him to reach for those big yankers. But while she waited, Dr. Berenstain gripped the tooth with a piece of gauze, gave a tug, and bing! Out it came! Ding! Sister looked at the tooth. It was very tiny. Dr. Berenstain gave it to her to keep, and it was her turn to hop down as good as new. "Don't I get a lollipop or something for being good?" she asked Brother. "You get a balloon," he said. "Lollipops aren't good for your teeth." Ding! The next morning, Sister plunged her hand under her pillow and found a shiny new dime where the tooth had been. "The tooth fairy came," she told Brother. "I told you she would," he yawned. Ding! Then she ran into the next room to show Mama her shiny new dime. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-dee, and psh. The Berenstain Bears and the Week at Grandma's by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When Mom and Papa Bears go away, cubs visit their grandparents for their first long stay. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and the Week at Grandma's by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. Once in a while, the Bear family, who lived in the big treehouse down a sunny dirt road deep in Bear Country, got out the family snapshots and looked at them. "What are these?" asked Sister Bear, picking up a book of photos. "I don't think I've ever seen these before." There were pictures of bears playing tennis, canoeing, dancing, and having all sorts of fun. The bears looked like Mama and Papa, only they were younger and thinner. Ding. They're pictures of Papa and me on our honeymoon," said Mama with a smile. "At Grizzly Mountain Lodge," said Papa. "We had a wonderful time." "What's a honeymoon?" asked Brother. "A honeymoon is a special trip couples take when they get married," explained Mama. "Getting married is a very special happening, and celebrating it with a trip is an old custom." "As a matter of fact," said Papa, "we've decided to go on a second honeymoon. We're going back to the same place to play tennis, go canoeing, and have fun." "It'll be lovely," said Mama. Ding. "A second honeymoon sounds like a pretty good idea to me," said Brother. "Me too," said Sister. They scooted out of the room and they were back in a jiffy with their vacation things. "Oh, you won't be coming," said Papa. "Honeymoons, even second honeymoons, are just grown-ups for grown-ups, not for cubs." But, what's going to happen to us?" asked Sister. "It just so happens," said Mama, "that Gran has been after me to let you spend a week with her and Gramps, and this will be the perfect opportunity." "A whole week?" said Brother. Ding. stayed with anybody that long, said Sister. Well, said Papa, taking a few practice swings with his tennis racket, there's got to be a first time for everything. What will we do for a whole week? Asked the cubs. Where will we sleep? What will we eat? Goodness, said Mama. Such a fuss about a simple thing like spending a week at Grandma's. It didn't seem like a simple thing to the cubs. They loved Gramps and Gran very much, but, well, they just weren't Mama and Papa. Besides, Gramps and Gran were sort of old. Ding. What are you taking with you? Sister asked Brother when it was time to pack. I'm taking 2 books, my jacks, and my teddy, of course. These, he said, holding up some books and his best yo-yo. Papa put their suitcases in the cart trunk last so that when they got to Grant's, unloading was as easy as 1, 2, 3. Then, after lots of Big Bear hugs and kisses, the happy second honeymooners were on their way. It certainly is good to see young folks having fun, said Gran as she waved goodbye. We're the young folks, muttered the cubs. We're the ones who are supposed to have fun. Ding! I'm sure you're hungry after your ride, said Gran when they went in. How about some of my special honey nut cookies and milk? No thanks, Gran, said Sister. I'm not hungry right now. Hey, these are really good, said Brother. Sister sneaked a taste. They were good, but, well, they just weren't Mama's. Now let's get you up to your room so you can get settled, said Gramps. The cubs reached for their bags, but before you could say Grizzly Gramps, they were gathered up, bags and all, and carried up the steep stairs. Gramps certainly was strong for someone so old. Ding. The room at the top of the stairs was very nice. Very nice indeed. But, well, it just wasn't home. Gramps, said Sister, where do you suppose Mama and Papa are right now? Well, said Gramps, I reckon they're still on the road just pulling into sight of Grizzly Mountain Lodge. After they unpacked their things, Gramps thought the cubs might like to explore around the house. Ding! Well, while it wasn't home, it was an interesting house. There was the attic crowded with all sorts of interesting things. Gran's kitchen with its yummy tastes and smells. And Gramps' den. Gramps knew how to build a ship in a bottle. When the cubs asked him how it was done, he just smiled. Where do you suppose Mama and Papa are doing now? They asked then. I reckon they've got into their tennis clothes and are swatting the ball back and forth, he said. Over the next few days, Brother and Sister found lots to do. They helped Gran feed her bird friends, more kinds than they had ever seen in one place, and Gran knew all their names. They helped Gramps cut and smooth twigs for a new ship in a bottle. It turned out that he built them outside the bottle and then slid them in. It was pretty tricky. Ding! They went fishing in a special place Gramps knew about. Well, said Gramps as they returned with a fine catch, I reckon that your Mom and Papa are out canoeing right now. I certainly hope we're having fun, said Sister, because we sure are. Better get these chairs in, said Gramps after a fine fish fry. It's going to rain tomorrow. How do you know? Asked Brother. I can feel it in my bones, answered Gramps. Ding! It turned out Gramps was right. Good, said Brother. We'll be able to relax a little. Sister got our jacks, and he started to play with his yo-yo. Used to be pretty good with one of those myself, said Gramps. Was he ever? Not only could Gramps make the yo-yo sleep and walk the dog, he could even do Baby in the Cradle and Round the World. That evening, after a refreshing nap, they all went to Gramps and Gran's regular Friday night square dance. Gramps and Gran didn't just watch, they doosey-doed with the best of them. They even won a prize for friskiest couple. Ding! Goodness, said Sister in the morning. This week really flew by. And we learned so much, added Brother, practicing Baby in the Cradle. Gramps and Gran, how come you know so much? Asked Sister. So many things. Why, you can even feel the weather in your bones. That's one of the good things about being an older person, said Gramps, smiling. You learn something every day, so that by the time you're old enough to get to be a grandparent, you know quite a lot. Ding. Gee, said Sister. I guess you and Gran are so old you must know everything. Oh, no, said Gramps, laughing. You never stop learning. Why, just this week we learned something very special. We learned how absolutely wonderful it is to be grandparents and have lovely grandcubs. Then Gramps and Gran swept their grandcubs up in a big hug. The next thing they knew, a familiar beep beep was heard. It was Papa tooting the horn. He and Mama were back from their second honeymoon, and it was time for the cubs to go home. Ding! After saying goodbyes and thank yous, the Bear family piled into the car and headed home. No sooner were they on their way than Brother and Sister were bubbling over with the fun and excitement of their week at Grandma's. Well, said Papa, sounds like you had a pretty good time. Oh, we did, said Sister. Papa, sometimes you might want to go on a third honeymoon. Then we could spend another week at Grandma's. Ding! A third honeymoon? Said Papa. I don't think anyone's ever gone on a third honeymoon. Well, said Sister, there has to be a first time for everything. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. The Berenstain Bears and Too Much Vacation by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Can a bear's vacation with more rain than sun end up being the one that's most fun? This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and Too Much Vacation by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. Well, that's everything, said Mama Bear as she and Sister and Brother Bear held the car trunk lid so that Papa Bear could tie it down. Not quite, said Papa, running back into the treehouse. We almost forgot the camera, he said when he reappeared. What good is a wonderful vacation without photographs to remember it by? Ding! Good thinking, Papa, said Brother. May I take some pictures when we get there? And how about me? Sister wanted to know. Of course you may, said Papa as they bundled into the car. We're all going to take pictures of the most wonderful vacation the Bear family has ever had. All right now, everybody buckle up, and we'll be on our way. 4 safety belts clicked into place, and they left their safe, comfortable treehouse and headed for the excitement and adventure of a vacation high up in the wilds of the Great Grizzly Mountains. Ding! It had been Papa's idea to take their vacation in the Great Grizzlies. It'll be a real wilderness experience. We'll live off the land. We're getting too soft here in the valley with all our supermarkets and other conveniences. When he saw the ad in the newspaper, there was no holding him. It said, "Try a wilderness vacation. A lovely mountain cabin complete with a rowboat by beautiful Crystal Lake." Ah, said Papa, painting beautiful word pictures. To wake with the rising sun and catch our breakfast from a clear morning mountain lake. To bathe in its sparkling water. to snack on delicious wild berries as we tramp the mountain trails. To gaze at the beauty of the mountain sunset, and to sleep through the peace and quiet of a mountain night, far from the noise of traffic and neighbors' barking dogs. It all sounded great to the cubs. "What kind of fish will we catch, Papa?" asked Brother. "Trout, no doubt," he answered with supreme confidence. But Mama wasn't so sure he would catch anything. So when she packed, she took along some canned goods in case the trout wasn't biting, and some books and games in case of a rainy day. "I can almost taste that fresh-caught trout," said Brother as the road led even higher, ever higher, into the mountain forest. "And I can almost taste those yummy wild berries," said Sister. "And don't forget my terrific wilderness stew," said Papa as he turned onto an even steeper road. But we didn't bring things for stew," objected Mama. "All we brought are some canned goods." "Of course we didn't," laughed Papa. "I'm talking about my special live-off-the-land survival stew. It's my secret recipe. I make it from bark, leaves, and roots that I find in the woods." "When will we get there?" asked the cubs. "Very soon. I can tell by the smell of that mountain air," said Papa, taking a deep breath. "That's not mountain air," complained Brother, making a face. "That's skunk!" Said Papa, wrinkling his nose. "A good time to start taking those pictures," thought Mama. "Pew!" said Papa. "Click," said the camera. "There's the cabin!" shouted Sister as they rounded a bend. Ding! And there it was indeed, a mountain cabin beside a lake, complete with rowboat. Of course, it wasn't quite as they had pictured it from the ad. Crystal Lake looked more like mud soup. The lovely mountain cabin looked more like a tumble-down shack. There was a rowboat, all right, but it was half sunk in the lake. But Papa wasn't the least bit discouraged. He was more excited than ever. "It's perfect!" he shouted. "The most perfect live-off-the-land vacation spot I've ever seen." Mama wasn't so sure. She noticed that there were no wires leading into the cabin, which meant there was no electricity. "That's the last thing we need," scoffed Papa. "What you need on a live-off-the-land vacation is plenty of can-do spirit and lots of forest smarts, and I've got enough of those for all of us." Ding! He took a cooking pot and a folding chair from the car trunk. "Here," he said, making a seat for Mama. "This is a vacation. You relax while I gather the fixings for my fabulous wilderness stew. And you two tidy up the cabin," he called to the cubs as he headed into the forest with the cooking pot. But Mama didn't expect to do much relaxing on this vacation, and she wasn't surprised to find that the cabin was an even worse mess inside than it was outside. There was an ankle-deep carpet of twigs, branches, and dead leaves on the floor. It was practically a museum of spiderwebs, cocoons, and mouse nests. "Time for another picture," thought Mama. "Scurry, scurry," went the mice. Click, went the camera. "What's this?" asked Sister as she cleaned the leaves out of the sink. "That's a hand pump for water," answered Mama. "Just what I need." It was Papa, back with his cooking pot full of strange-looking bark, leaves, and roots. "A little water for my stew." He worked the handle. The pump gurgled and squeaked, and after a while began to squirt water. Rusty brown water. But he wasn't discouraged. "Just what I need for my stew," he said cheerfully. Ready-made gravy." He carried the pot outside, where he had prepared a cooking fire. It was very exciting for the cubs, but Mama wasn't so sure. So she made a fire in the fireplace and warmed up a supper of canned beans and dried honeycomb. When Papa cried, "Stew time!" the cubs ran out for a first taste. Mama followed with the camera. "Here's to living off the land," said Papa, holding up a big spoon of the strange-looking stuff. Then he, brother, and sister each took a taste. "Yuck!" said sister. "Blah!" said brother. "Patooey!" said Papa. "Click!" said the camera. Mama Bear's supper of beans and honeycomb proved very tasty. Papa Bear stretched and yawned. "Now, early to bed so I can get up with the sun and catch our breakfast." The sun did rise, and it was very beautiful, but Papa snored right through it. The frogs, crickets, and owls had made such a racket during the night that he hadn't fallen asleep until just before the rising sun lit up the sky. Ding! Papa began to get a little discouraged when he went out to catch breakfast. The boat sank as soon as he stepped into it, and all he caught was a gloppy mudsucker that made snuffling noises and stared. "Snuffle, snuffle, glop," said the mudsucker. "Click," said the camera. It was Papa's turn to snap the picture when Mama and the cubs tasted the wild berries. The thorns were something fierce, and the berries were so sour even the birds puckered. Ding! Later, there was a perfectly beautiful sunset, but the bear family didn't get to see much of it. They were too busy swatting the swarms of hungry mountain mosquitoes that swooped in from the lake. "Live off the land, you say?" shouted Mama as they ran for the cabin. "With all these thorns and mosquitoes, it's more like the land is living off us." It began to rain just as they reached the cabin, but the roof leaked badly, and pretty soon they had more leaks than they had pots and pans. They spent a miserable night. By morning, they were soaked to their fur, and there was a foot of water in the front stairwell. "Don't worry," said Papa. "The rain can't last forever, and just as soon as I sweep out this water," but instead of Papa sweeping the water swept Papa out the door, down the muddy slope, and into the muddy, mucky lake. When Mama and the cubs reached him, he looked more like a mud ball than Papa Bear. "Say," he said, looking up at them, "I have a terrific idea. Let's go home." So the bear family loaded the trunk, put the car top up, bundled into the car, and bumped and splashed down the mountain in the driving rain. The rain had stopped, and the sun had come out by the time they reached the valley, and their treehouse had never looked so good to them as it did that day. The next day, Mama took the film to the camera store to be developed. When the pictures came back a few days later, the bear family wrote titles on them. They began to chuckle as they passed the pictures around. The chuckles grew to roaring laughter, and soon they were laughing so hard they cried. Papa smells the mountain air. We are greeted upon our arrival. We taste Papa's wilderness stew. Papa catches our breakfast. Our first taste of wild mountain berries. Papa decides it's time to go home. Ding. And every so often through the years, they take out those pictures and have absolutely wonderful time enjoying the worst vacation the bear family ever had. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. The Berenstain Bears and the In Crowd by Stan and Jan Berenstain. One's sense of self-worth is often undone the first time one feels left out of the fun. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and the In Crowd by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. It was early summer in Bear Country. School had been out for a few weeks, and Brother and Sister Bear had settled into a comfortable routine of bike riding, playing ball, exploring, and just generally having fun. They had chores, of course, keeping their room neat, helping with yarn cleanup, and when he got very busy, helping Papa Bear in his shop. Mostly, though, they were looking forward to a carefree summer of fun and relaxation. But sometimes the road ahead is not as smooth as we would like. Sometimes there are unexpected potholes in the road of life, and Sister Bear, as it turned out, was headed for a real wheel buster. With school closed, the playground was the gathering place for Brother, Sister, and the neighborhood cubs. It had swings and slides, a jungle gym, a track, and a sandbox for little cubs. There were also jump ropes, frisbees, and soccer balls you could get from Miss Mac, who was in charge. On most days, Sister would stop off for her best friend, Lizzie Bruin, and they would go to the playground together. After a swing and a slide or two, they would get a jump rope from Miss Mac. Lately, they had been getting 2 ropes for double dutch. In double dutch, the jumper jumps over 2 ropes that are being turned in opposite directions. It isn't easy, but Sister and Lizzie and some of their friends have been practicing, and they were getting pretty good. We're getting pretty good at it. That's what was happening the day the trouble started. Sister and Lizzie had 2 ropes and were looking for other cubs to join them. But where was everybody? Where were Anna, Millie, and Linda, their usual jump mates? As they looked around, they spied a small crowd at the far corner of the playground near the bite rack. That's when Anna ran by. "How about a little double ditch?" called Sister. "Can now," shouted Anna. "There's a new cub with a terrific 10-speed bike, and she's letting us take turns riding it." Ding. It sounded interesting, and even though Sister and Lizzie were still a bit small for 2-wheelers, they decided to investigate. The new cub not only had a pretty sharp bike, it was purple and had 10 speeds and handbrakes. She was pretty sharp herself. She wore blue stretch pants, a designer top, a yellow handband, and hoop earrings. "Her name's Queenie McBear," whispered Anna, "and she just moved into the neighborhood. She has pierced ears." Ding. Sister pushed through the crowd, gave the newcomer, who was taller than she was and a little older, a big smile, and said, "Hi, I'm Sister Bear." Queenie smiled too, but it wasn't exactly friendly. "Sister Bear," she said. "Now what kind of a name is that? And you've got to be kidding with those clothes. A pink ruffled jumper and a hairball?" "Well," said Sister, a little confused, "it's my kind of name. And as for my clothes, why don't you and your little friend go play in the sandbox?" interrupted Queenie, not giving Sister a chance to finish. Then she got on her bike and shouted, "Come on, gang, let's go to the Dairy Bear for some soft ice cream, my treat." And off she zoomed down the road. Jumpmates Anna, Millie, and Linda looked a little embarrassed, but soft ice cream was soft ice cream. So they got on their bikes with the rest and followed Queenie down the road. Ding. Now Sister was very confused and upset too. "I don't get it," said Lizzie. "All you did was say hi. Say, I know what," she added, trying to cheer her up. "I heard that Miss Mac is organizing a double dutch tournament with prizes and everything. Come on, let's go sign up." Sister Bear didn't even answer. She was so upset that she just turned and went home. She was usually so cheerful after a session at the playground that it didn't take long for Mama Bear to figure out that something must have gone wrong. Papa and Brother Bear noticed too. Ding. After supper, the whole story of Queenie came out. Her bike, her sharp clothes, and how she'd make fun of Sister, and then treated everybody to soft ice cream. "Everybody except me and Lizzie," she said glumly. "What did she make fun of?" asked Mama. "My name, my clothes, my hair bow, me," said Sister. "Oh dear," said Mama. "That wasn't very nice. Not very nice at all. Maybe she was just trying to make an impression." "Well, she certainly made an impression on me," said Sister. "A bad impression." Ding! Of course, Mama had been a cub once, and she knew about in-crowds and cubs like Queenie who tried to build themselves up by putting other cubs down. But she also knew that it didn't do much good to stew about it. So she gave Sister a hug and said, "Don't fret, sweetie. I'm sure things will look a lot brighter in the morning." Things did look a lot brighter in the morning, and Sister Bear was once again her confident self. She decided that today she would ride her trike to the playground. The playground was just as much hers as Queenie's, and besides, she wanted to ask Miss Mac about that double Dutch tournament. It sounded interesting, and maybe Queenie wouldn't even be there. Ding! Queenie was not only there, she and the gang were riding around the track on their bikes. When Sister tried to join in, all she got for her trouble was a cloud of dust and more Queenie's smart talk. "Well, if it isn't little Miss Hairbow on her tricycle. Excuse our dust," she shouted as she whizzed past. "Excuse her dust indeed," thought Sister, getting an idea. "I'll show that Queenie McBear." She pedaled home as fast as she could. She hoped Brother Bear wasn't out riding his big two-wheeler, because that was her idea, to borrow his bike, go back and ride circles around that Queenie McBear. Ding! She managed to get on Brother's bike by standing on a step, and she almost got it going. But her legs were a little too short, and after a few wobbly circles, she crashed. Kerwhop! "Oh dear," said Mama, who had just returned from a quick shopping trip to the mall and was watching from one of the treehouse windows. She had a pretty good idea that Sister's attempt to ride the two-wheeler had something to do with Queenie and the in-crowd. Ding! "I guess you had another run-in with that new cub," she said, as Sister came into the house. "Well, here's a little something to cheer you up." She reached into her shopping bag and took out some new clothes. Some new and different clothes for Sister Bear. There were some very sharp jeans, a green and white striped designer top, and a bright green headband. "For me?" said Sister. "Of course," said Mama. "Come on now, let's try them on. You know," she continued as she helped Sister get out of her pink ruffled jumper and polka dot blouse and into her new outfit. "Maybe these new things will change your luck." "Maybe," agreed Sister. But then she asked, "Mama, why did Queenie pick on me like that?" "Well," said Mama thoughtfully, "sometimes there are cubs, even grown-ups, who behave that way. They show off for the crowd by picking on someone who has a certain kind of name or wears a certain kind of clothes. They try to build themselves up by putting others down. That's how in-crowds get started." "But how about Anna, Millie, and Linda?" asked Sister. "They've always been my friends. Why do they side with Queenie?" "Maybe because they were glad Queenie wasn't picking on them. And soft ice cream is soft ice cream. There," she said, removing Sister's pink hair bow and putting on her new headband. You're all set. Here, have a look at yourself in the big mirror. Ding. It's very nice, Sister said, and I really appreciate the new things. But there's one problem. It's just not me. I like me, she said as she stepped down. And I wouldn't change me for a whole bunch of Queenie McBears. Then she took off her new outfit and put her old one back on, hair bow and all. And she can keep her old in crowd. Excuse me, Mama, I have to make a phone call. She marched over to the phone and dialed the number. Hello, Lizzie, she said. About that Double Dutch tournament? The Double Dutch tournament had gone to be a big thing. A lot of teams signed up. There were even some Boy Cub teams. Brother Bear was on one, along with Cousin Fred and the Too Tall Gang. When Sister and Lizzie signed up, Anna, Millie, and Linda quit Queenie's team and joined Sister's. Not only was Sister the best Double Dutcher in the neighborhood, but Anna and the others were getting a little tired of Queenie's snooty ways. Ding! Sister Bear let her team in as fine as an exhibition of Double Dutch jumping as had ever been seen in Bear Country. It was no contest. Her team won going away. Queenie's team was a Double Dutch disaster, especially Queenie, who made the mistake of wearing beads and big hoop earrings that caught in the rope and ended in a terrible tangle. After the prizes were awarded, the Cubs all crowded around and congratulated Sister. They wanted her to teach them some of her Double Dutch tricks. As they lined up for lessons, Lizzie called out to Queenie, How about you? Ding! No thanks, said Queenie with a little grin. I've already learned my lesson. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. The Berenstain Bears and the Bully by Stan and Jan Berenstain. If a cub gets beat up, that's usually when he or she vows to make sure it doesn't happen again. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and the Bully by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. One day, Mama, Papa, and Brother Bear were busy in the yard when Sister Bear came home crying. Her face was scratched and dirty, and her clothes were torn. What happened to you? Asked Mama. Please tell us, said Papa. Brother couldn't believe how beat up Sister looked. Her jumper and blouse were torn. Her face and fur were a mess. Even her pink bow was drooping. Did you fall? Asked Mama. Sister shook her head no. Was there an accident? Asked Papa. Once again, she shook her head no. Ding! I think I can tell you what happened, said Brother. It looks to me like somebody beat her up. Beat her up? That's outrageous, said Papa. Who in the world would beat up a sweet little cub like Sister? Asked Mama. A bully might, said Brother. That's when Sister stopped crying long enough to get some words out. But Brother's right, she sobbed. A no-good, nasty, rotten bully beat me up and for no reason. Just the thought of it made her so angry that she started to cry all over again. Ding! Mom and Papa helped Sister up the steps and into the house. After a drink of water, she calmed down enough to tell them what had happened. Lizzie, Queenie, and I were playing tag at the playground when this new cub, a no-good boy named Tuffy, stuck out a foot and tripped me. So I got up and said, why don't you watch where you put your feet? Before I knew what was happening, it was pow, bam, whammo, and I was flat on my back with this Tuffy character sitting on my chest rubbing dirt in my face. Outrageous, roared Papa. "Where's my hat? I'm going over to that playground and..." Mama pulled Papa aside. "You're going to do no such thing," she said. "But something has to be done," Papa said. "Indeed it does," agreed Mama. "But right now we have to take care of Sister." She's turned to call, "Brother, would you please get me a wet washcloth? Where's Brother?" "Don't know," said Sister. "He was here 1 minute, and the next minute, he was gone." Ding! Lizzie and Queenie were still at the playground when Brother got there. "I've got to do something about a bully named Tuffy," he said. "Where is he?" "Brother," said Lizzie, "I think there's something you ought to..." "Never mind the small talk," he growled. "Just point him out and get out of the way." Lizzie shrugged and pointed to the small building that housed the boys' room and the girls' room. But there was no one there. No one, that is, but a little girl who was coming out of the girls' room. Ding! But hold everything! The little girl was wearing a t-shirt that said Tuffy. "You're Tuffy?" said Brother. "Yeah," she said. "Want to make something out of it?" But you're a girl," said Brother. "What do you expect me to be, an eggplant?" said Tuffy. Brother Bear was shocked right down to his very bones. The big bully who was going to clean up the playground with was not only a girl, but a little girl than that. Maybe even a bit smaller than Sister. When Lizzie and Queenie came over to watch, Tuffy figured out who Brother was. "Hey," she said, "you must be the big brother of little Miss Pink Hairbow. She got fresh, so I cleaned her clock. Want to make something out of it?" That was exactly what Brother wanted to do. But there was no way he could hit a girl. If he did, then he'd be the bully. It was all he could do to turn away and leave. "Chicken, just like your sister," yelled Tuffy. Brother headed home, hands in pockets, staring at the ground. Ding! Something had to be done. But what? As he passed the school, Brother got an idea, but he would have to hurry. It was Friday afternoon, and the school would be closing for the weekend. Mr. Grismeyer, the gym teacher, hadn't left yet. When Brother got home, he was carrying something in a big bag. Instead of going in the front door, he quietly opened the side hatch and dropped the bag into the cellar. Then he closed the hatch and rejoined the family by going in the front door. Ding! "Where have you been?" asked Mama. "We've been having a family meeting." I was just checking out the playground," Brother said. "And no doubt you found out that Tuffy is a girl," said Mama. "We've been discussing the situation and have pretty much decided that the best thing for Sister to do is simply to avoid this awful Tuffy person. But if she still has trouble, we'll report it to the principal. What do you think of the plan?" "It's okay," said Brother. "But Sister's the one that got beat up. What does she think?" "It's okay, I guess," said Sister. "But what I'd really like to do is punch that Tuffy's nose right through her face and then kick her in the shin and knock her down." "And now, Sister," said Mama, "we've been through all that." "Good," thought Brother. "Sister and I are on the same wavelength." Ding! Before dinner, Brother passed Sister a note. It said, "Important. Meet me in the cellar at 7 o'clock. The first thing Sister saw when she showed up for the secret meeting was one of Mama's big bags of dried beans sitting on a stool. There was a drawing of face marked Tuffy taped to it, and Brother was standing beside it, holding the bag he had gotten at school. He also had a book. "What's this all about?" asked Sister. Ding! "It's about that Tuffy character, and you not getting beat up again," Brother said. "Sounds good so far," said Sister. "Mama's bag of beans is a punching bag," Brother said. A punching bag named Tuffy, said Sister. Perfect! She gave the beans a pretty good punch. Not bad, said Brother. What's in the other bag? Sister asked. Boxing gloves, Brother said. And this book is called The Art of Self-Defense. Where did you get all this stuff? Asked Sister. From Mr. Grismeyer. I told him I wanted to do a little working out at home. We've got it just for the weekend. It goes back Monday morning. Then what are we waiting for? Sister said. Let's get started! Ding! Sister turned out to be a good student of the art of self-defense. With Brother's help, she learned the left jab, the right cross, the left hook, and the uppercut. She also learned to duck, and she punched Mama's dried beans silly. Ding! Well, you learned quite a lot over the weekend, Brother said on Monday morning. But there's something very important for you to remember. You still have to avoid Tuffy. She's a mean little thing. She was even ready to take me on. Don't worry, said Sister. I can still feel where she socked me on the jaw. Sister did a good job of avoiding Tuffy. She avoided her all day Monday and all day Tuesday. But at recess on Wednesday, Tuffy did something so mean and nasty that Sister just had to do something. Tuffy was throwing stones at a baby bird that couldn't fly yet. Stop that, you bully, shouted Sister. You'll hurt that baby bird. Well, if it isn't little Miss Pink Hairbow, said Tuffy. You know something? I'd much rather hurt you. Ding. She rushed at Sister with her hard little fists ready. But Sister was ready too. She had her left out and her right up, protecting her jaw. When Tuffy threw a hard right, Sister ducked, then put up her fist, and Tuffy walked right into it. That quickly, Tuffy found herself sitting on the ground with a bloody nose. Ding! And almost that quickly, one of the recess teachers swooped down on Sister and Tuffy, pulled them into school, and sat them on the principal's discipline bench. Sister's mind was a blurry mix of pride that she had protected the baby bird, and shocked that she was sitting on the principal's famous discipline bench. But she was even more shocked when she saw that Tuffy was crying. What are you crying about? I only hit you once, Sister said. I'm not crying about that, said Tuffy. Then what are you crying about? Sister couldn't help wondering what could make a cub as tough and mean as Tuffy cry. Ding! If the principal tells my mom and dad about this, said Tuffy, well, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble, that's all. Thought Sister. Here's a cub who's scared and worried. Maybe that's why she picks on other cubs. But Sister didn't think about that for long. She was too worried about what was going to happen to her. Mr. Honeycomb, the principal, was very strict about fighting. Ding! The way it turned out, one of the other recess teachers had seen the whole thing and told Mr. Honeycomb that Sister was just trying to protect a baby bird. But Mr. Honeycomb still thought it would be a good idea for both sisters and Tuffy's parents to come in to talk over what had happened between their cubs. And that's what they did. Sister, brother, and Tuffy all learned that talking things over is a lot better than fighting over things. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. The Berenstain Bears Moving Day by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Their stuff is all packed. Here comes the truck. Let's move with the bears and wish them good luck. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears Moving Day by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. The bear family didn't always live in the big tree house down a sunny dirt road deep in bear country. Years ago, when Brother Bear was an only cub, they lived in a hillside cave halfway up Great Bear Mountain at the far edge of bear country. Ding! It was a comfortable cave, cool in summer and cozy in winter. And while it wasn't perfect, it intended to be dark, and it dripped and trickled a bit. It was home, and the bear family was quite happy there. Happy and busy. Mama Bear kept busy managing things and tending the vegetable patch. Papa Bear had plenty to do with his wood cutting and furniture making. And Brother Bear kept busy climbing, collecting rocks, and playing with his friends. But living on the mountainside wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy growing vegetables in the thin, rocky soil, and the trees Papa needed were getting fewer and farther between. But the sun was bright, the air was clear and sparkling, and the view was magnificent. Yes, the bear family was happy and content living in their hillside cave, halfway up Great Bear Mountain at the far edge of bear country. Until one day, Papa Bear said, "My dears, the time has come to move." Ding! "Move?" cried Brother Bear. "That's right," said Papa. "The trees are getting few and far between on the mountainside." "Yes," said Mama, "and it's not easy raising enough vegetables for a growing family in this thin, rocky soil. Where are we going to move to?" "Move to?" Brother asked. "To the valley," said Papa, as he began putting lamps and things into a box. "The valley?" said Brother. The valley down there was nice to look at, but he wasn't so sure he wanted to live there. It was so far away. Ding! "What about my toys?" asked Brother. "We'll take them along, of course. Put them in here," said Papa, handing him a box. "And what about all my books?" "We'll take them along too," said Papa, handing him another box. "And what about my friends?" asked Brother. "We can't put them in a box and take them along." Ding. "That's true," said Mama, lifting Brother onto her lap. "You'll be leaving your friends behind. Papa and I will too. That's what happens when you move. But you can keep in touch with them. You can write, even visit, perhaps. And besides, you can make lots of new friends." "When are we going to move?" Brother wanted to know. "Tomorrow, bright and early," Mama told him. "The moving bears will be here first thing in the morning." That night, as Brother bedded down in his corner of the cave, he wondered what it would be like to leave his old neighborhood and his old friends. He wondered what it would be like to move into a new neighborhood, making new friends. And then he began to wonder if he would ever fall asleep. And just when it began to seem that he never would, he did. The next morning, the moving bears came with their big truck and began moving the bear family's things out of the cave. "Everything goes," said Papa. And everything did. The moving bears were very fast, but very careful. Before long, the cave was empty. Ding! Then, after a fond farewell look at their old home, the bear family said goodbye to their friends and neighbors, got into their car, and headed down the mountain. The big moving truck followed. Ding! Down the mountainside they went. After a few tight spots and a few wrong turns, they were in the rich green forest of the valley. "Look at that forest," said Papa. "Now I shall have plenty of wood to cut." They passed farms with fine fields. "And look at that rich brown soil. What a vegetable garden I'll have, said Mama. Brother was on the lookout for friends and playmates, but all he saw were a frog and some butterflies, and they didn't look very friendly. Get ready, said Papa, as they turned onto a sunny dirt road. Just round this bend is our new home. But it's a tree, said Brother. A tree house, said Papa. A fine tree house with a downstairs and an upstairs and an attic and even a room of your own. It was indeed a fine house, a whole house hollowed out of a great oak. It did need work. The paint was old, there were some broken steps, and some of the bark was loose, but Mama and Papa had great plans for fixing it up. As the movers took the bear's things into their new home, the bears imagined what it would look like when it was all fixed. It was going to be very beautiful. Ding! They were so busy imagining that they didn't notice they had company. Their new neighbors had come with gifts of welcome. There were rabbits with carrot stew, bird and squirrel families with seeds and nuts, and a number of bear families with honeycombs, wild berries, and lots of cubs to make friends with. Ding! The bear family felt very welcome in their new neighborhood. That night, they went to bed very tired, but very happy. Ding! And when they got their treehouse all fixed up, it was just about perfect. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. Psh. The Berenstain Bears Think of Those in Need by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Almost all bears discover in a little while that what they've outgrown makes quite a pile. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears Think of Those in Need by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. The bear family enjoyed the good things in life as much as anyone else. They enjoyed good food and good times. They enjoyed a snug treehouse and a comfortable chair before a crackling fire. They enjoyed books and music, toys and games, quilts and cuckoo clocks. Ding! But sometimes it seemed, especially to Mama, that perhaps the bears were enjoying too much of a good thing. It was also clear to Mama, as she managed the treehouse, that they had a problem that came under the heading of too much stuff. Ding! Too much stuff in the closets, too much stuff in the drawers, too much stuff in the basement, too much stuff in the attic. There was too much stuff everywhere. It all made Mama a little uneasy. It was beginning to be a worry. Ding! Papa thought there was a too much stuff problem too, but he was more annoyed than worried. Annoyed about a fast wheels car that Brother had left on the stairs, and about a squeaky duck that Sister had left in the bathtub. But there was much more on Mama's mind than fast wheels cars and squeaky ducks. What was beginning to worry her was that they had so much, while some others had so little. Ding! And as sometimes happens with a worry, when you go to bed, it can turn into a nightmare. That's what happened to Mama. One night, she dreamed that all their stuff came to life and poured out of every drawer and closet and nook and cranny in the treehouse, chanting, "Too much stuff! Too much stuff!" Ding! "What's the matter?" asked Papa when Mama woke up screaming. "It was just a dream, my dear," Mama said. But though it was just a dream, She knew what she had to do. The next morning, at breakfast, she made an announcement. "This family," she said firmly, "has altogether too much stuff. It's time to get rid of some of it." "Stuff?" said Brother. "What sort of stuff?" "Stuff like dolls with no heads," Mama said. "Broken airplane models, old puzzles, games that nobody plays, and fast wheels cars on the stairs and squeaky ducks in the bathtub," chimed in Papa. Ding! "Now wait a minute," protested Sister. "That's all our stuff. What about some of your stuff?" "My stuff?" said Papa. "Like what?" "Like your 17 fishing rods," said Brother, "and the zillions of old fishing magazines you have stacked up in the attic," added Sister. "But those are all valuable collectibles," said Papa. Mama groaned. "Look who's groaning," said Papa. "What about those shelves and shelves of old cookbooks you never look at, and those bits of yarn and cloth you're never going to use?" "All right," agreed Mama. "I guess we all have a lot of things we don't really need. That's just my point. What should we do with it all?" Ding! The Bear family thought for a moment. "Hey," said Brother, "let's have a yard sale and make a fortune." "Yeah, great idea," agreed Sister and Papa. But that was not what Mama had in mind. She had been thinking more and more about all those folks who had so little, especially with Christmas coming on. But what could the Bear family do? Mama already had a plan in mind. First, she had Papa and the Cubs go through all their stuff and make 3 piles. In one pile were things like old board games and puzzles. In another, all their forgotten but still good toys and sporting goods. And in another, clothes and furniture, extra cookbooks, and unused fishing rods. Ding! When the bears piled everything into the car, there was hardly enough room left for them. "Where are we going?" asked Sister. "First off," said Mama, "is the old bear's home." The old bear's home was where older bears went to live when they needed help taking care of themselves. Nurses and doctors looked after them and made sure they were in good health. But sometimes the older bears got a little lonely and bored. They liked visitors and things to do. Ding! That was part of Mama's plan. When the family arrived at the old bear's home, they handed out their games and puzzles to the older bears, and then sat down to play games and do puzzles with them. At first, Brother and Sister were a little shy and embarrassed. The older bears were just so old, but after a while, they got over it. The bears in the home weren't any older than their neighbor, Miss McGrizz, and she was okay. Soon, they were having a fine time, and so were the older bears. They were all sorry when it was time to leave. Ding! The next stop was the Beartown Young Cubs Hospital. Brother and Sister knew about the hospital. Brother had gone there to get his ankle x-rayed at the time they thought it was broken, and Sister had come along to watch. The bears dropped off their load of used toys. They were welcome. The hospital workers said the toys would be given out at the hospital Christmas party. On their way out, they saw a young bear in a wheelchair with his leg in a big cast. They were glad they had brought the toys. He looked as if he could use some cheering up. Ding! Their last stop was the Beartown Bears Who Care store. This was a store that sold things to raise money for needy bears who needed warm clothes and good food. The store was run by bears who wore uniforms and often played in a band in front of the store. Ding! The bears lugged all their old clothes and furniture and stuff into the store. On the way, they stopped to sing a few Christmas carols with the band. There was a big iron pot out on the sidewalk for collecting money for the needy. Papa gave Sister $1 to put in it. They headed home with warm feelings about what they had done. Ding! As they drove along, they passed the lighted windows of the Beartown department store. They were beautifully decorated for Christmas. There was window after window of new toys and games, new things for the house, and the very latest thing in fishing pools. But the members of the Bear family were so filled with special thoughts about helping others that they hardly noticed the wonderful things in the windows. Ding! Except maybe out of the corners of their eyes. Bow down, bow down, bow bow, the end. The Berenstain Bears Get Stage Fright by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Most little bears like to play, to show off, read aloud, and to sing. But on a stage in the spotlight, for some, the play's not the thing. This is the story of The Berenstain Bears Get Stage Fright by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. On the way to school one day, Sister Bear, Brother Bear, and Cousin Freddie got to talking about an important subject, their teachers. Teacher Bob is tough but fair, said Freddie, who was in the same class as Brother. Brother agreed. How about your teacher? He asked Sister. Is she easy or hard? Teacher Jane isn't easy or hard, Sister said. She's good. Then the bell rang and the Cubs were ready for the school day. Ding! The reason Sister thought Teacher Jane was good was that she made things interesting. When they were learning to add and subtract, Teacher Jane set up a pretend store with play money and a toy cash register. They helped the Cubs learn, and it was fun. When the class was studying words and ideas, they made posters. That helped them learn too. And sometimes in reading class, instead of just reading from their books, they acted out the stories. That's what they were doing with Grizzly Stiltskin, the story of the funny old elf bear who was sure that nobody could ever guess his name. Sister Bear was acting out the part of the miller's daughter, who becomes a princess and has to spin straw into gold. They had come to the part where the princess had one last chance to guess the elf bear's name. Ding! Oh, good sir, read Sister in a loud, clear voice. We've come to the end of our guessing game because Grizzly Stiltskin is your name. That's when Grizzly Stiltskin flies into a rage and disappears in a puff of smoke, and the princess lives happily ever after. That was very good, class, said Teacher Jane. So good, in fact, they asked a prize for you. I'm in charge of the school play this year, and guess what? The play is going to be Grizzly Stiltskin, and some of you will have parts in it. Then she gave out the parts. One of them had Sister's name on it. What fun! What excitement! Sister was going to be in the school play on the auditorium stage with scenery and costumes and makeup and everything. Ding! It turned out that Brother and Freddie had gotten parts too. Brother was going to be the woods bear who finds out the elf bear's name, and Freddie was going to play the part of Grizzly Stiltskin himself. Who are you going to be? Freddie asked Sister. When Sister, who hadn't even thought to look, turned to her part, it said, the princess. Wow, said Brother and Freddie. That's the main part. Well, how about that? Said Papa Bear when he heard the news. My little princess is going to play the part of the princess. Say, we'd better tell Grizzly Gramps and Gran, and Uncle Willie and Aunt Min. Calm yourself, dear, said Mama, taking Papa aside. Sister has a lot of work ahead, and she doesn't need a lot of fuss and excitement. Said Papa. You're absolutely right, my dear. Yeah, why all the fuss? Said Brother. It's just a dopey school play. I already know my part. Hear me, oh princess. I was deep in the forest, and this is what I heard. The princess's firstborn shall be mine. If she had guesses 9 times 9, she could not win this guessing game, 'cause Grizzly Stiltskin is my name. See, he said, nothing to it. But Sister wasn't so sure. She was beginning to feel a little nervous about the whole thing. The next day, when Teacher Jane asked Sister to take a message to the office, Sister decided to take a shortcut through the auditorium. She had been in the auditorium many times, of course, but she had never been on the stage. She climbed the steps and looked out over the rows of seats. It looked enormous. Then she imagined all the seats filled with everybody in the school, and Grizzly Gramps and Gran, and Uncle Willie and Aunt Min. It looked even more enormous. Why the long face? Asked Brother on the way home from school. Sister told him she was worried about the play. Relax, he said. There's nothing to it. It's a piece of cake. Why, I can do my part standing on my head. Hear me, oh princess. Hanging from a branch. Hear me, oh princess. And from inside a hollow log. Hear me, oh princess, princess, princess. Cousin Freddie and the gang thought Prodder was pretty funny, but Sister didn't even smile. That evening, Sister's worries all came out. Reading a part in class just isn't the same as getting up in front of the whole school. They have to learn it all by heart, she wailed. How am I ever going to do it? The same way you learn anything else, said Mama. Line by line, page by page. Papa and I will help you. Besides, you already know lots of things by heart. The alphabet, dozens of songs and rhymes, the Pledge of Allegiance. Why? I bet you know enough things by heart to fill a book. You already know the story. All you have to do is learn your part in practice. That's what Sister did. She learned her part line by line, page by page. And she practiced. She practiced in her room in front of her toys. Oh, good sir. She practiced in the field in front of her forest friends. We've come to the end of our guessing game. She practiced in front of Mama and Papa. Because Grizzly Stiltskin is your name. That was wonderful, sweetie, said Papa, applauding. Letter perfect. Yes, sighed Sister, but practicing in front of my toys and forest friends and you and Mama just isn't the same as getting up on the stage in front of the whole school. How do I practice for that? Sweetie, said Mama, there are some things in life you can't practice. You just got to do them. But what if I get nervous and scared? She asked. Oh, but you will, said Mama. I will, said Mama. Everybody gets nervous when they have to perform in front of an audience, even famous opera singers and star athletes. But if you know it's natural and you expect to be a little nervous, it won't really bother you that much, and you'll do yourself proud. And besides, she added, you'll be having a big rehearsal in the auditorium. That'll help. Now, where's that brother of yours? I got to finish his costume. I do wish he'd take his thing a little more seriously. Don't worry about him, Mama, said Sister. He can do his part standing on his head. The rehearsal did help, but an empty auditorium still wasn't the same as a real-life audience. And now, at last, the moment had come. The curtain was opening on the Bear Country School production of Grizzly Stiltskin. And there was Sister, all alone on the big stage looking out at the whole school, and Grizzly Gramps and Gran, and Uncle Willie and Aunt Min. It was a little scary, but it was also very exciting. Then she heard a loud, clear voice saying, "I am the miller's daughter, and woe is me, for my father has told the king I can spin straw into gold, and in truth, I cannot." It took her a split second to realize that the voice was hers. Ding. From there on, everything went beautifully. There was one little rough spot near the end when it was time for Brother to do his part. He came on stage in his handsome woods bear costume, looked out at the hundreds of eyes staring at him, and completely forgot of what he was supposed to say. "I can't remember my lines," he whispered. "Why don't you try standing on your head?" whispered Sister. But then she took pity on him and helped him with his lines. The play ended magnificently, with Grizzly Stiltskin flying into a fury and disappearing in a puff of smoke. The applause was long and loud. After the show, Mom and Papa came backstage. "Terrific show," said Papa. "Terrific. Congratulations," said Mama, "on a job well done." "A piece of cake," said Princess Sister. The end. The Berenstain Bears and Mama's New Job by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When Mama gets home too late for a meal, how will the Cubs and Papa Bear feel? This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and Mama's New Job by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. The Bear family, who lived in the big tree house down a sunny dirt road deep in Bear Country, was a very happy family. One of the reasons was that they were all very busy. Each member of the family had work to do. Papa Bear cut and split logs and made the wood into handsome furniture, which he was proud to sell. Mama Bear not only took care of her family, but she managed the whole tree house and tended the vegetable patch as well. And of course, Brother and Sister Bear had important jobs too, going to school and keeping up with their schoolwork. Ding! The members of the Bear family had hobbies too. Papa's favorite hobbies were fishing and napping. He caught almost as many naps as he caught fish. Brother and Sister also had many hobbies. Brother was especially proud of his model airplanes. He liked to have Mama watch him fly his models, and sometimes she helped him fly his tether plane. Sister was a super rope jumper, and her goal was to jump 1,000 times without a miss. She liked to have Mama count for her because Sister could jump faster than she could count. Ding! Since Mama was so busy with her household duties, she had time for just one hobby. But what a hobby! Mama was the best quilt maker in all of Bear Country. Her quilts were light and fluffy, but very warm. Her stitchery was fine and even, and her designs were original and exciting. Sister Bear slept cozy and warm under a quilt that showed her jumping rope. Brother went to sleep under a handsome airplane design, and the big quilt on Mama and Papa's bed showed the Bear family's beautiful treehouse. Yes, the members of the Bear family had happy, busy, full lives, especially Mama. "My dear," called Papa to Mama as she worked in the vegetable patch, "if it wouldn't be too much trouble, would you put aside any fishing worms you might find?" "Look, Mama," called Brother, "I'm going to fly my new biplane." "I'm going to try for 1,000, Mama," said Sister. "Would you please count for me?" Ding! A little too full, thought Mama from time to time. She would have liked to have a little more time for her quilt. She had some lovely design ideas she wanted to try. A sunburst with clouds and bluebirds, a beautiful bouquet of flowers with butterflies, and a harvest scene with pumpkins and squash. But there just never seemed to be enough time. Then one day, something happened that changed the lives of the Bear family. Something that changed Mama's quilt making from a hobby, ding, into a business. It might not have happened except for a coincidence, which is when two things happen at the same time. The two things that happened were that Papa had a big sale of some very special furniture, and on the same day, Mama hung out the family quilts to air. Ding! Folks who came to buy Papa's handsome furniture became excited about Mama's beautiful quilts and wanted to buy them too. Would-be buyers offered Mama quite a lot of money. They were very disappointed when she told them that the quilts were not for sale. "With your talent, you really should be in business," they said. "Mama, in business?" said Papa, patting her on the shoulder. "I don't think so. One business bear in the family is enough." But Mama wasn't so sure. She was proud of her quilt-making skills and knowledge. After all, she was president of the Bear Country Quilting Club. Other quilt makers often came to her for help and advice. Ding! That evening, Papa and the cubs noticed that Mama was very quiet. She was quiet during supper. She was quiet during cleanup. She was quiet all evening. She was quiet because she was thinking about going into business. The next day at lunch, she made her big announcement. "I've decided to open up a quilt shop," she said, "and I've rented the empty store just down the road." Ding. "Not that overgrown wreck that has been empty for years," protested Papa. "But you don't want to be a business bear," said Sister. "You're our Mama." "That's no reason why I shouldn't open my own quilt shop. A lot of Mama Bears have jobs. Mrs. Grizzle is a sitter. Mrs. Honey Bear teaches school. Dr. Gert Grizzly is your pediatrician. I don't know how to say that." "Yeah," said Brother, "but they're not our Mama." There's really nothing to worry about," said Mama. "Things aren't going to be all that different." Ding. "Will you still count for me when I jump rope?" asked Sister. "And will you still watch me fly my airplanes?" Brother wanted to know. "And how about my fishing worms?" asked Papa. "Will you still put them aside for me when you tend to the vegetable patch?" "We'll see about that," Mama said. "Meanwhile, I have to be at the shop. Some of my quilt club friends are helping me get it ready. And oh yes," she added as she turned to leave, "there's a lot to do, so supper may be a little late tonight. Ta-ta!" "Ta-ta," said Papa. "Ta-ta," said the cubs. Ding. Supper wasn't a little late that night. It was a lot late, and it was Papa and the cubs who prepared it. But they didn't mind, because although Mama was very tired, she was very happy too. Happy and excited. "Guess what?" said Sister as she served Mama her supper. "I reached 1,000 jumps today. Brother counted for me. And Sis helped me fly my tether plane. We had a great flight," added Brother. "And I weeded the vegetable patch," said Papa, bringing a tub of warm water to Mama for her tired feet. "Well," said Mama, "I'm very proud of you all." Papa and the cubs were very proud of her, too. There was no way to tell whether the quilt shop would be a success, but she certainly was giving it a good try. Ding! After about 2 weeks of hard work, the Bear Country Quilt Shop had its grand opening. It was a very exciting event. Not only did Mama sell her own quilts, but she sold quilts for all the members of her club as well. It was a great success. Why, even Mayor and Mrs. Honeypop came in in their long lavender limbs line. They bought 1 quilt and ordered 3 more. Ding! "I know what," said Mama as she closed up shop that night. "Let's stop out at the Burger Bear for supper. My treat." The Bear family celebrated with a delicious Burger Bear supper. Papa and the cubs were very proud of their business bear wife and Mama. Ding! The extra money came in handy too. The end. The Berenstain Bears and the Big Question by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Many cubs' questions strike grown-ups as odd, but the really big one is, "Mama, what's God?" This is the story of The Berenstain Bears and the Big Question by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear the sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. Early one weekend morning, Sister Bear was busy having a tea party with her dolls. She poured the tea into each of the dolls' cups. It was really apple juice. Sister didn't much care for tea. She served cookies, too. "You're welcome, my dears," Sister said, pretending that the dolls had thanked her. "Now," she said, folding her hands, "let's say grace." The Bear family usually said grace before meals. Sometimes they were in such a hurry or so hungry that they forgot, especially Papa. But Mama usually reminded them. So Sister bowed her head, closed her eyes, and said, "Thank you for the world so sweet. Thank you for the food we eat. Thank you for the birds that sing. Thank you, God, for everything." Ding! Then Sister drank her juice and ate her cookies. The dolls weren't very hungry, so Sister drank their juice and ate their cookies too. Later, when Sister and Mama were washing up the tea things, Sister grew thoughtful. "Mama," she said, a faraway look in her eyes, "what's God?" Ding! Papa and Brother were just coming in from having a catch, and Papa overheard Sister's question. "That's a very big question, Sister," he interrupted before Mama could say anything. "It happens to be a question that people have been asking for a very long time." Taking Sister by the hand, he led her into the living room and sat her on his knee. "Now," he said, "let me see if I can explain it to you." And then Papa began to give Sister a big, boring lecture. Blah, 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 billions and billions of stars and planets, blah, 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 each of its own important time and place, blah, 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 stars to infinity. Ding! Mama decided to step in. "That's all very interesting, Papa," she said, taking Sister off his knee. "But if you'll excuse us, Sister and I have some gardening to do." Mama took Sister outside into the garden. It was a beautiful morning. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the flowers were all in bloom. "Now, Sister," Mom said as she began weeding her garden, "all you need to remember is that God made everything. The birds, the flowers, the sunshine. They're all God's work, are part of God's great plan." Ding! Sister looked around at the wide, beautiful world and thought over. "You mean," she said, "God made everything? Everything in the whole wide world?" "That's right, dear. said Mama. Did he make clouds and trees and butterflies? Asked Sister. Of course, answered Mama. Everything. But Sister didn't stop there. Did he make worms and spiders and big yellow slugs? She asked. Yes, nodded Mama, feeling a little sick as she picked a big yellow slug off her favorite geraniums. As I said, they're all part of God's great plan. Ding! What about bellyaches? Sister went on. What about cold germs? What about earthquakes, floods, fires, and tornadoes? Said Mama, rubbing her chin thoughtfully. This is an even bigger question than I realized. Look, said Sister, pointing to the road nearby. There's Gramps and Gran, and they're all dressed up. That's because they're wearing their Sunday go-to-meeting clothes, said Mama. Good morning, said Gran. We're going to service at the chapel in the woods. Why don't you join us? Said Mama. Why don't we indeed? Then she marched inside, got her purse, and put on her hat. Ding! Where are you going? Wondered Papa, noticing her get ready to go out. We, answered Mama firmly, are all going to services at the chapel in the woods. Services? Said Brother as she led him down the front steps. What's that? That, explained Papa, hurrying after them, is where we bears go when we want to think about big questions. Ding! It was quiet and peaceful in the chapel, and very pretty too. The sun shone in through windows made of bits of colored glass. Dust sparkles floated in the rays of light. An organ began to play. Look, said Brother. That's old Widder McGriz playing the organ. Shh, said Mama. The preacher's about to speak. Welcome, friends, said the preacher. I'm glad to see you all here this morning. I'm especially glad to see visitors who haven't been with us before. Sister and Brother sat up. The preacher was talking about them. Now, I know you're all expecting to hear me preach, he went on. That's why they call me the preacher. There were a few chuckles. Ding! But this morning, he said, we're going to do things a little differently. Instead of me doing the preaching, I want you to do it. The bears, all seated on long benches, looked at each other. That's right, he said. You do the preaching today. Just sit there and think about the big questions of life. And when the Spirit moves you, stand up and speak your piece. Ding! It grew very still and quiet. The bench was very hard, and Sister had an itch right between her shoulder blades. But before it got too bad, someone stood up and started to speak. It was Farmer Ben. On this fine spring morning, he said, I've been thinking about our beautiful bear country, about its woods and fields, its sparkling streams and rolling hills. I'm thankful for bear country. I feel thankful to God for giving us such a beautiful land in which to live. And he sat down. Ding! The itch between Sister's shoulder blades had gone away, but now she noticed a fly crawling on the back of the bench in front of her. She wanted to swat at it, but she was afraid to make a commotion. Luckily, someone else stood up to speak. It was Grizzly Gran. I, too, am thankful to see my grandcubs, brother and sister, here with me this morning. I feel thankful to God for two such wonderful cubs. And she sat down. Ding! Brother and sister felt a little embarrassed. They knew that Gramps and Gran loved them, but it had never occurred to them that their grandparents might thank God for them. Before they could feel too embarrassed, Mama was standing up to speak. It's been a long time since I've been here, she said. I guess we just been too busy with everyday things. But I'm glad we came this morning. It helps me think things through. And she sat down. Ding! The gathering lasted a little longer. Sister had a few more itches. A few more bears stood up to speak. But then it was all over, and everyone was shaking hands and talking and filing out. The bear family waved goodbye to Gramps and Gran and headed down the road to their treehouse. Papa Bear hoisted Sister up on his shoulders to give her a ride, and Brother ran ahead, doing cartwheels to get the Kings out after sitting still for so long. Ding! Sister Bear looked up at the clouds in the deep blue sky and at the swallows swooping overhead and sighed. "Mama," she said. "Yes, dear?" asked Mama. "What about questions?" Sister asked. "Questions?" said Mama. Ding! "Yes, questions," Sister repeated. "Did God make questions?" "Yes, Sister," Papa answered as they came to the top of a hill and looked out over their treehouse home nestled in a beautiful valley of bear country. "Mostly questions." Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, the end. Psh. The Berenstain Bears, Dollars and Cents by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Cubs like their own money, their own dollars and cents. But to spend it or save it, what makes the most sense? This is the story of The Berenstain Bears, Dollars and Cents by Stan and Jan Berenstain. When you hear this sound, ding, turn the page. Okay, let's begin. Money wasn't a big problem in the Bear family's treehouse down a sunny dirt road deep in bear country, but it was a problem, at least where Cub's brother and sister were concerned. They knew some things about money. They knew that Papa wasn't made of it, that it didn't grow on trees, and that they should save it for a rainy day. Papa had told them those things many times. What they didn't know about money was how to manage it. Ding! The Cubs liked money. They had liked it even before they knew you could buy things with it. They liked coins better than paper money because you could do things with coins. They liked to roll them. They liked to spin them. They liked to stack them. And as they got a little older, they liked to play heads or tails with them. Ding! But by keeping their eyes and ears open at the supermarket, the hardware store, and the clothing store, they soon learned that you could do a lot more with money than just play with it. You could buy things with it. That will be $7.50. That will be $9.20. That will be $11.10. You could buy all sorts of things. Ice cream from the Good Humor Bear. I'll have peach orange with Jimmy's. I'll have nutty chocolate cherry. Rides on the bucking duck at the mall. Hi-yo, duck. Balloons from the Balloon Bear at the park. I'll have red. I'll have blue. As time went on, the Cubs learned more about money. They learned the difference between the dollar sign, which was an S with two lines through it, and the cent sign, which was a C with one line through it. And while they were still fond of coins, they learned that you could buy a lot more with dollars. Papa, may I have $5? Baseball Bob is having a big baseball card sale. Papa, may I have $10? My Barbie doll is getting married, and she needs a wedding dress. Ding. Baseball cards? Wedding dress? Shouted Papa. You must think I made of money! You must think money grows on trees! The Cubs backed away. All they wanted was some green money. All they got was Papa red in the face. Mama had been watching. She knew it was time to calm things down, and she had an idea how to do it. If you Cubs will excuse us, she said, there are some things I'd like to discuss with your Papa. Ding. My dear, said Mama, It's not going to do any good to shout at the cubs. It's as much our fault as it is theirs that they don't understand about money. It's up to us to teach them how to manage money. But how? Asked Papa. I suggest that we begin giving them a regular weekly allowance, she said. Said Papa. That's an interesting idea. Then perhaps they will learn to be more responsible about money. Ding! An allowance? Said Sister. What's an allowance? Asked Brother. An allowance, said Papa, is a sum of money that you will get at the beginning of every week. It will be up to you to manage it, to spend it or save it, as you see fit. The cubs looked at each other as if they didn't believe him. It seemed too good to be true. Ding! And here's your first week's allowance, said Papa. Brother and Sister looked at the small pile of money Papa had placed in front of each of them. Then they grabbed the money and were out the front door, down the front steps, and on the road to town faster than you can say weekly allowance. Said Papa. Double said Mama. When the cubs returned, they each had a pile of candy bars, bubble gum, and trading cards. They had spent their whole allowance on the first day of the week, and they did the same thing the next week, and the next, and the next. It was clear to Mom and Papa that the allowance idea wasn't working as planned, and it certainly wasn't teaching the cubs how to manage money. The cubs would quickly eat the candy bars and get tired of the other things they bought. Then they would mope and groan because they didn't have any money left for the rest of the week. Mama, said Brother, I don't think this allowance idea is working out. I quite agree, said Mama, but what do you suggest? A bigger allowance, said the cubs as one. Possibly, said Mama, but that is something we'll have to discuss with your Papa. Well, let's discuss it with him right now, said Sister. Oh, no, said Mama. Papa is balancing the checkbook. I never interrupt your Papa while he's balancing the checkbook. Ding! Checkbook, thought Mama. Our checkbook helps Papa and me manage our money. It gives us a chance to think about how we should spend it. It gives us a record of how much money we have spent and how much we have left. Mama went into the kitchen. She rummaged around in the cupboard drawer. It was filled with things she wasn't quite ready to throw away. Among the things were some extra checkbooks that were left over from when she changed banks. But how to explain the idea of checks and checkbooks to the cubs, she wondered. Ding! Mama told Papa what she had in mind. Then she explained the idea of checks to the cubs. Do you mean you're taking away our allowances? Protested Brother. Not at all, said Papa. As a matter of fact, we're increasing your allowances. But instead of giving them to you at the beginning of each week so that I can go out and spend them before they burn a hole in your pockets, we're going to hold them for you. Then when you want a little pocket money or want to buy something, you have to write out a check. Ding! Here, I'll show you how it's done. First, you make it out to cash, like so. Then you put how much it's for, in words as well as numbers so there can't be any mistake. Then you write what it's for on this line and sign it at the bottom and on the back. Then you give it to Mama and she gives you the money and keeps a record. It's that simple. Brother got the idea right away and gave Mama the check for $3. and she gave him the cash. He changed his mind about spending $5, half his allowance, on baseball cards and bought a baseball book instead. Sister changed her mind too. She decided to save her first week's allowance and buy the Barbie wedding dress with her next week's allowance, so she would still have $10 left. Now that's what I call money managing, said Mama to Papa. The end.